respectful comment, whether praise or criticism, however identifying and criticizing a specific student, parent, teacher, or administrator, or other Mount Vernon education official or employee is prohibited. Such complaints must be presented and addressed through the proper administrative channels. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak, with up to an additional minute for the speaker to use to summarize and conclude their remarks. If appropriate, board trustees and/or the superintendent of schools or their designee may respond to a speaker's remarks at the conclusion of the public comment portion of that meeting. Our first speaker this meeting is Langston Clark.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Langston Clark. I reside at 1 Kingsbridge Plaza. Been a resident of Mount Vernon since 1972. I'm here tonight to speak about Dr. Z's name being removed from the school. I'm going to use my union experience from Jamaica, London, and here. I was an administrative organizer for 1199 for 20 years before I came and worked for the Board of Ed. And I also worked for the Board of Ed 20 years. Management have rights, always have rights. And we need to sit at the table and discuss certain things. This thing with Dr. Z touched me very hard. I've not been to this board meeting for a few years because I'm satisfied the way Dr. Hamilton is running things. When I look at Columbus School, where there's a sidewalk which wasn't there, and I was one of the founding members of the Peacekeepers, where we spent many Saturdays by Milton and Columbus Avenue with the drug addicts, and the whole place was open like a pasta. Now, when Mandela came about, we only had 1 high school. Now we have 3. So we can sit and negotiate that Dr. Z name can be on 1 if management don't want it to be on the elementary school. You know, and there is some experience here that didn't go to the new board members. Miss White wasn't a board member, but she knows the history of Dr. Z. Miss Saunders should know. I've been on the Building and Grounds Committee when Miss Saunders was the liaison and many others. So I'm asking you to consider this. It's not a fight. It's something is what it is. And you see, I'm not a newcomer. I got my Mandela stuff on. And it's 2 black men. And this city of Mount Vernon, I choose to live here because this is the only city in the state of New York that has more blacks than white. Also, most of the leaders that we have, school board, city, is black. Legislators, everything. A name is very important. And Dr. Z is very close to me. I'm 1 day older than Dr. Z. My birthday is the 27th of October and his is the 28th. He's my fraternal brother. And Dr. Z took me from the high school over to Mandela, the annex at 11th Avenue. He said, Mr. Clark, I want you to clean this up for me. These children deserve the same. Dr. Z would buy clothes for those kids, feed them with the lunch that they are accustomed to. I collected $3,000 for an administrator who was about to be terminated. It turned around and he didn't have to use that $3,000. You know what we did with the money with the PTA? We bought coats for the children at Mandela School. Some of us been here a long time. So when some sensitivity come up, include some of us at the table. One thing in Mount Vernon, if you have a certain name, you can get away with a lot. But when you sit down at the table and discuss with people from the community who have some guts. My son was murdered this year. This year is 20 years since he was murdered this August. And I'm going to conclude by what Dr. Forbes said at an emancipation service from Riverside Church. He said if you sit quiet and say nothing when things are happening, you're just as bad as the person who is doing it to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Our next speaker is Charlene Clark.
Good job, brother.
I'm not related, but I would be honored to be related to you as well. I'm from Pennington School, and I'm stopping by just to touch base a little bit with you guys. We do not want to be forgotten because I know we're on the other side and everybody thinks that we have everything, but we don't. So I just wanted to bring it here. I know you don't see a lot of us come a lot, but we're here and we're very proud of our school. And we just wanted to touch base. I know you helped us a lot. We had a meeting in regards to the constructions, but that was our meeting. So I just wanted to bring it up here. Don't forget us. I know we added a new wing to go to 8th grade, which was the Board of Education's plan. But don't forget the rest of the items that we have. I know finance is a touchy subject everywhere, but I know that portion was the Board of Education portion to make all the elementary school go to middle school, correct? Yes. So let's not just tie everything into that one portion that we did get and forget about all of our other needs in regards to the auditorium, completion of the playground. You talked very well about that. But I just want you guys to bring it here so it's noted on your documents as well that that's still a concern for us. And we know that people are addressing it, but we want you also not to forget us. Okay? The second thing is I moved from Nourishell. I lived in Nourishell, went to Nourishell High School, don't get me. All the way until I went to college, but I moved to Mount Vernon. I have many friends there. And we transferred here about 3 years ago. The only frustrating thing for me and my daughter is because, and my son too, is that for the 3 years that I've been in the district, we've had 3 different principals and 3 different vice principals. So consistency for us is not there, but we're going to need it. Because for the children, every administrator brings in something different. Everyone teaches different. Everybody has a different mindset. Hopefully everybody's goal is for the children, but every time you switch, you're also having to learn a new person and the kids have to learn something else. So consistency is what we would like. I already spoke to Mr. Gonzalez. I'm sure he's talking to you guys too, and we're going to have to figure out a game plan together. And if you guys could come to Pennington and discuss with us, the PTA, I'm part of the PTA as well, that would be awesome. And so we could be at the table, like Mr. Clark said, meeting at the table is good so we can have a discussion to see how to have a game plan and a strategy to be able to get our children to be the best them, their individual selves, because there's a whole bunch of them there, okay? The next thing is communication. So I think there was I work and most of the people are working parents, and depending on whatever their job situation is, the communication the last time in regards to the snowstorm, I do appreciate that you take my children's safety and other people's children's safety into consideration when you're doing the school closures. I'm trying to be fast. But we're going to need some time to have to coordinate childcare, okay? Because it kind of threw me for a loop. When we were having school, it was going to be a half a day, then it was a full day, then it's no after school, and then you start calling in your resources to be able to support you and your family. But we need to know where we're going with more time, a timely announcement. So I do appreciate those. What's the next thing? How to bring back coding and robotics to our students. Very bright. We have a big spectrum that's at this school, and we don't want to lose any one of them. I'm looking also to see if we can also have the talented and gifted program be not just an hour, 2 hours or so, but be a thing, whether it's a half a day. I know it's probably budgeting. I'm always dipping in somebody's pocket, but we're going to have to come to the table to figure out how we can do that right, because then they're going to be the ones taking over here, and we want them to be successful, and they're excited. We did have girls who code with Miss Ehrman, but she's no longer there. The boys were a little jealous because they want to code too. So we're going to see if we can figure that out. Is that my time? I'm done? All right. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, and I apologize, I just have her first name, like Brandy from Pennington,
She got stuck at work, sorry.
and Elizabeth B. from Pennington. B.
My name is Elizabeth Barretto, and I have concerns on two schools. The first school is Pennington. My concern is, my son is in fifth grade, but when he goes to Power Hour, he gets sixth grade work. So I'm wondering, what is Power Hour supposed to be really teaching them? Are they supposed to be teaching them or helping them learn and understand what they're doing that week in school or that month? Or are they supposed to be learning something for the coming year? So I'm just a little confused about that. And about STEAM, I was notified by my son yesterday that they will not have Power Hour for a whole month. So when I called the school, they said it was based on finance, budgeting. So where does that leave the children that need Power Hour? Because a lot of them rely heavily on the Power Hour to pass their grades. My second concern for STEAM is, a lot of times you reach out to the teachers by email, phone calls, calling the office, and you receive no calls back ever. No emails, no calls, so it's a little difficult to work with the teacher so that you can help the student. And that's what I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just respond and explain Power Hour?
So Power Hour is designed to be an extension of the school day. So it's specifically created to help students who need additional supports and or enrichments. So all the schools have been approved for their Power Hour programs already. So if you haven't reached out to the principal, I would encourage you to do that about the teacher communication. But in terms of Power Hour, what I suspect may be the issue is if the program was under-enrolled, because there has to be a certain number of students enrolled in order to make it make sense. We're not gonna pay teachers to run in 5 kids show up. So that may be the issue. I'll look into it for you and get a little more detail about the status of Power Hour with the STEAM Academy. But off the top of my head, that's what I suspect may be the issue. And I could be off base with that, but I'll try to find out for you. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
That includes public comment.
thank you. Dr. Hamilton, do you have a report this evening?
I do. Good evening, all. I do have a report this evening, and we have a couple of presentations. But my report is to talk briefly about the Columbus Official Audit Showcase, which will be held this week, Friday. This has been so widely received that we have exceeded the number of schools that we can host. These are schools from outside of Mount Vernon who are interested in seeing what we are doing in Mount Vernon. Principals, assistant principals, chief academic officers, coaches, interventionists, teachers will be in attendance, and the districts participating in the Columbus Showcase include Bedford Central School District, Greenwich School District, Hudson City School District, Sanford School District, PS 287 and PS 37 out of Brooklyn. The showcase is also being looked at by other schools in our own district as a measure to emulate the best practices, and we are seeing at the site and focusing on areas of instruction, leadership, culture, and systems, and the showcase will take place this Friday from 9 to 11. So trustees, if you weren't able to participate on the initial showcase that we did for trustees, this will be an opportunity for you, and you can reach out to Dr. Gorman. We can make sure that there's room for you. But the reason I'm sharing this is because it is amazing that our work has received national attention in the district. Dr. Gorman and I are scheduled to speak at the National Conference of Education, which I've shared with you previously. And the reason is an honor to be invited to be a part of this, but there will be over 5,000 participants in this national conference from around the country, and there are several international district leaders that will be present as well. So while you may never be a prophet in your own land, it's nice to know that school districts are looking at us and looking to emulate the work that we are doing. Tonight we are pleased to, excuse me, it is this Friday at Columbus School from 9 to 1. One. So this evening we have a couple of presentations. We're going to start with, I don't see Principal Carol. Oh, there you are. Principal Quinones, good evening. We have several students from Strathagen here this evening to present. They competed in a robotics competition. And Ms. Quinones was so proud of it. She was sending me pictures and sending me text messages just highlighting the students and asked if they could come and share at the board this evening. So without further ado, Mrs. Quinones and students of Strathagen School.
That whole tape was see on the tape. Yeah. Let the community see it.
It's a video.
Beautiful.
She wasn't in for the other day.
Who those kids? These are children, that's right. That one of them?
Hi, we're the Strathagen Tigers. We are to help the community.
You're on the mic first. Do you want us to come out there?
Yeah, we'll be good idea, I think.
We're gonna give you the mic.
Yeah. Give us a second, Mrs. Quinones, to come around.
That's right.
While you're making your way down, I do want to say to the Mount Vernon Bots how very proud I am of all of you. I also need to share that this would not be possible without their phenomenal coach, Miss Christine White, who is the fourth
Hi, we're the Strathagen Tigers. So our project was to help the community, and we actually were thinking of food pantry. We thought of the food pantry because we thought we needed to help the less fortunate, even if they are fortunate and they can't buy food.
Some people are poor or some people are homeless. That's why we created the food pantry, so that everybody can have an opportunity.
We like this program because it helps us share ideas and learn new things from different levels instead of learning new things from our same age.
We're thinking that the food pantry should be located on our school property, so that it would be like during school, kids could come and take food home and after school.
Beautiful.
Monday through Thursdays, the hour's gonna be from 2:30 to 5:30, and then on Friday through Sunday, it was gonna be 10:30 to 3:30.
We also decided on a footbridge because it would be better so that you could see like for example the train station. There's a footbridge there, so that's where we got our idea basically.
So I don't want to steal the show from them because they are so eager and they worked very hard on their presentation. But I just want to fill in the gaps a little bit for everyone on who the Mount Vernon Bots are. They range from grades 3 to 6. They are problem solvers, collaborators, and critical thinkers. We are the first elementary level robotics team here in Mount Vernon, so we're super proud of that. We're very fortunate to have the help of some volunteers from the first LEGO League Robotics Challenge, and we do have some representatives here with us tonight. Thank you. With them. We have Marcy from Portchester, Alonzo, her son, Alex from Chappaqua. They devoted their time to us. So what the children were explaining to you is there are three parts to the challenge. There's the robot design, which Christian is holding, and this robot comes in a box with just pieces. So they are challenged to design a robot all on their own to complete a series of missions. All of the missions are based on real-world challenges. So the theme this year was City Shaper, and here's a little example of two of the missions that they worked on. One was clearing a traffic jam, and the other was helping students with disabilities and having access to a playground. So they focused on the food pantry, as they described, and that being a need in our community, a need, we have this beautiful campus, so we figured why not use some of that space. And they could build a food pantry. They explained the hours of when the food pantry would operate. So all of that was their innovation project. One of the other key components is learning how to program. So I'm just going to pass it back to them a little bit so they can explain how the programming of the robot works.
The programming works by, we had to test the way the robot moved and to see if it would go far enough and come back to where we started. We had many challenges. We had to figure out how far it could go, how fast it could go, and the rotations. It was really a lot. At the end, we took each other's ideas and we combined them together to create something beautiful.
During the missions, we completed like 3 or 4 missions, which includes the traffic jam, the swing, and moving the blocks. It took us a while to figure out what to do and codes to put in, but we did it eventually.
So boys and girls, share really quickly how the skills that you've learned through the program. They've had over 30 hours from September until January of training in this program. How do all of those skills now transfer to the classroom? How is this useful to you in the classroom?
Well, we work together better now. We take each other's ideas, and the one way we take them is that we have fun with it and we discover new things. Robotics actually helps us with skills in the classroom because it teaches us teamwork and cooperation. For example, we use technology, and we also happen to have a prep that includes technology, so it's really a big advantage to us. It also helps us if we have to do group projects or have to do writing essays with a partner. Wealth of opportunities. This might come to adventures for us because when we're older and when we go to a college, we can go to a college that we learn more stuff about robotics that we might know from when we were younger, like from being 6th grade now.
And there's scholarship money. More than
It impacts on us because 20 years from now, since our generation is all about technology, we can learn things to cure more diseases than they do now. It will also help us in our later life with finding jobs, for instance, to be an engineer.
Yeah. We use our technical smartness to help people. Also, it can help us with problem solving in real-world situations. Robotics really gives us some skills because if we happen to go to a high school or college with a robotics program, we could get first dibs on the program.
It also helps us because it would grow more of our knowledge know that we can extend our thinking more farther than we actually can.
So, Dr. Hamilton, members of the board, fellow teachers, administrators, parents, we're just asking for any help, any ideas in sustaining this program. I think it's a beautiful thing to have with the students, and they really thoroughly enjoy it. You're more than welcome to come out. If you have any knowledge of robotics, please come and share, or you could come and learn with us. So thank you again for having us. Thank you. One last thing, sorry Dr. Hamilton, to have Alonzo, we wanted him to speak about his impact in working with the students as a volunteer. I guess these are for me, thank you very much.
Good evening everyone, my name is Alonzo Manzueta and I go to Lakeland High School in Sherbrooke, New York. And robotics has been like really impactful in my life. I found out about it in 8th grade, which is a little bit late, and I wish I found out about it a little bit earlier because it really sparked my love of engineering and buildings, and ever since. So then I'm the captain of an FTC team, which is the next level above FOL, and we just build a little bit more complicated robots with machining and manufacturing on parts. And it was just a massive help in my school education, my presentation skills, and working with other people as a whole. And it would just be a great thing to really have a strong foundation in the lower grades and elementary school level in order to really have that step up in high school and college even. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the students at this time? Yes.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, how did you fund this? How did you fund this? And what are you looking for to sustain it?
Money, always. No. That's the easy answer.
Well, I know.
But we did have a lot of support from the first LEGO League, and as Alonzo was speaking to, the FTC team. So they came in and they helped us with registration, but then also I think some of it was a little bit from our budget, a lot of parent volunteers and support. But yes, we're in need of more volunteers. So that's really what we're looking for, whether it's teacher support, district level support.
Retired engineers.
Absolutely, yes, because you know, the students, the more research that they do and the more people they speak to in a variety of fields, that's what really builds their knowledge and extends it.
Well, bravo, let's give them another round of applause. So before you go, I want to give you two possible options. One is the Mount Vernon Education Foundation is up and running, and soon they will be putting an announcement out to teachers to hear about programs or initiatives like this that they may want to be able to support once they build up their kitting. But the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is if you would send me a proposal and cost it out for me. This is separate from the Mount Vernon Ed Foundation. Send that directly to me and I'll see if I can scrounge up a few dollars for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is this the only, the first team in Mount Vernon and the only team, or do other schools have?
It is our first elementary team.
Elementary, but we have it at the middle school?
At the STEAM Academy.
At the STEAM Academy.
Yes.
Okay, how can we generalize this to all the schools and
well,
make
what
it
Carol doesn't know is that she's going to be doing this for the principals. To get our principals excited about it as well. And then we'll talk about how we can infuse that in our curriculum or across the district more.
Especially early, as he said, going to high school and finding this kind of delayed his progress a little bit. So if the kids could do it at the elementary level first, and then continue through middle school and high school, that would be great.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And as a coach, I also try to reach out to other teams in Westchester, and I've already registered some interest. Just like us, we came to you guys to help, and I think there might be other teams that are also interested in helping. So basically, you can have a collaboration between people that have done it already and people that are trying to learn, like Miss right, in order to get really good results.
Yep, thank
Trustee
you.
Williams, did you want to say something?
So this program goes from 3 to 6 now. Is there a plan to expand next year to go to 7? Or any 6th graders in here?
Not here at the moment.
Okay.
We would love to expand, but obviously
Right.
with the time constraints and just staffing, you know, it's hard. When they get to the competition level also, there is a maximum of about 10 to 12 kids, but that doesn't mean that throughout the year that more children cannot be a part of the team and work together. So, but yeah.
All right, awesome. President Torres? Oh, there you are. If you'll join me, I'd like to acknowledge our students this evening, starting with, and our teachers, starting with Ms. White, in recognition for your participation in robotics. Michaela Lorby, did I say it right? Larby. Christian Harney. Nathaniel Morrison. Adam Munoz. Makai Nugent. And Mrs. Quinones, for those students who participated but are not present this evening, I want to acknowledge them. Gianna Sanford. Kiara Hall. Liam Ba. Maya Dorlavram.
Nicole Radlagan.
Thank you very much. Outstanding presentation this evening. And Mrs. Quinones, you think we can pull this together for the principal's meeting tomorrow?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Dr. Gorman, if you can add it to the agenda. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up this evening, we have a CTE presentation from Mount Vernon High School. Mr. Gonzalez, I understand, will be facilitating this conversation for us this evening. Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, Dr. Hamilton. Good to see you. Good evening, trustees. Hard act to follow, and while we do not have a robotics team yet, to the students of Tripagan, congratulations on an unbelievable presentation. Your speaking skills, this is really going to help you in life. You have an important decision to make in 8th grade, so when you're dropping that lottery ballot in, remember Mount Vernon High School. So good evening, trustees. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to present last month in terms of our status with International Baccalaureate. We are looking forward to our authorization visit, which is scheduled for March 8th and 9th. And I understand that there were some questions around what else are we doing with our CTE programs, how have we expanded. So what I hope to do tonight is provide you the answers to the questions. that you have. I have asked Nick to join for part of this presentation because I understand that you wanted to hear from him when I went back and watched the video of last month's board meeting. So I'll call him up shortly to join me for his portion of the presentation. I want to thank Ms. Sherry Ward for helping me put together a lot of the information and for helping to oversee a lot of the CTE programming, especially as it relates to the articulation agreements with colleges, which I'll discuss just shortly. So what you see in front of you is statistics from the New York State Department of Labor. These are the statistics that we use before we even entertain expanding our CTE programs. And what this tells you, and by the way, this is just a small snippet of the hundreds of jobs that are listed on the New York State Labor website. And what you see here is the number of jobs in that field. That's the column that's titled employment. And then you have the mean salary, the median salary, the entry-level salary, and what a salary would look like for an experienced person in each of those fields. So what I did was I combed through the hundreds of job titles that were listed on the New York State Department of Labor website and pulled out those that were analogous to some of the courses that we're offering at Mount Vernon High School in our CTE programs. So you can see that the very first one for advertising and promotion managers and marketing managers, those two together are part of a business pathway that we are now establishing. And you can see that the entry-level salary is $98,450 and an experienced manager of promotions and advertising is $218,000. I caution you against looking at the last column because that's a really nice column to start with. But as we move further down the list, you'll see where some of our students can land in terms of some of the other opportunities that they may have. Computer programming, software developer, and web developers, those three are directly related to what we are offering in our Cisco IT Essentials course. So basically, the coding skills, that similar to the coding skills, by the way, that the students at Trapp Hagenwood are learning for their robotics, those coding skills and app development skills are the skills that can then be transferred into a comp sci, so students that want to major in computer science when they get to college, etc. These entry-level jobs are paying them somewhere between $46,000 and $76,000 at the entry level. We have radio and TV announcers, photographers, film and video editors. So those three are part of a TV production track. What's important to take notice of is in our TV production studio, it's not just about the superintendent when he does Soup Scoop on the TV. It's about what's going on in the other room. So the control room, the students are learning to edit with the same type of software that's used in the industry. It's actually called Avid software for editing, and that's the same software that is used at some of the high companies like NBC or CNN. A few years ago, we had CNN come to our career day. And so the gentleman came into the TV studio and he was blown away. He invited our students to go to CNN because oftentimes who gets the focus is the person on the stage. And he was able to take our students on this field trip and have them turn around and look at the hundreds of people it takes just to make one person look good. And what happens is you start having conversations about a hair and makeup specialist and how everyone that is on TV has some sort of makeup before they go on the TV because of the shine. And then, well, what causes the shine? Well, the lighting. So now you're having conversations with kids about the technical aspects. So very, very powerful. Nursing assistants, medical assistants go together. Part of our CNA strand, that's certified nursing assistant. Food service managers, chefs and head cooks, and all other cooks is listed next. Entry-level salaries range from somewhere between $53,000 to $28,000. Barbers, hairdressers, and cosmetologists go together. $23,600 is the entry-level salary, and $23,160 for hairdressers and stylists. So what I tell our students, is particularly in those two tracks, is that while that entry-level salary may be significantly lower than some of the others, there is nothing, and I tell you there is nothing like having one of these skills when you go off into college and you're the only person cutting hair in the dorm. Because it can be quite lucrative for you, off the books, if you're cutting hair in a college dorm. Because even when we went, and this is part of the platform that I stood on to make sure that our CTE programs get noticed, what happened when we hit the recession in 2005, first in 2002 and then again in 2005, the one industry that did not suffer was health and beauty. Because no matter how broke we are, we still want to look good. So when a student can go in knowing how to do hair, knowing how to provide some sort of a health and beauty service, then they can certainly make some money while they're continuing their studies. Last one is auto service tech. So this field is changing significantly. The students at Mount Vernon High School are in the auto mechanics courses. It's not auto body, so they're not working on removing dents and fixing fenders and bumpers. They are learning three aspects: what's under the car, what's inside the car, and what makes the car move. So those are the three basic aspects, and I'll share with you what that means in terms of the certifications that our students walk away with. So these are the career pathways. We have a culinary arts pathway that has been approved through 2025. We have a graphic design pathway that's also approved from 2015 through 2025. Our CNA is approved through 2024. TV production, 2025. Automotive, 2025. Barbering, the application has been submitted for this current year. Cisco, application submitted for this current year, as well as cosmetology. Business management will be the new track that we are still looking to make a connection with so that that can be approved. So the word approved means that it is approved by New York State as a pathway, and you have an articulation agreement with a college or an institution to support those students.
Good.
So the course enrollment, on the left-hand side is the 2019-2020 enrollment numbers. So those are the students that are currently enrolled in our classes. Is the first column, and the second column is the average class size for those classes. So for example, our automotive section has 92 students that are participating in the automotive program, and that's an average class size of 20. Barbering has 70 students. Barbering a few years ago did not exist at Mount Vernon High School, and it is up to 70 students. One teacher, 70 students. He has an average class size of 16, which is actually ideal for Mr. Borland because there are 8 seats in the barbering class, 8 barber seats. In addition to the classroom setting, he has 8 seats, so every class that he does some sort of hands-on, one student plays the role of the client and the other student plays the role of the barber. Cosmetology, 75 students are taking advantage of that with 18, average class size of 18. Cisco is one section, so there are only 15 students, but that is a 3-period class. So 15 students are taking advantage of that Cisco. Now that is very difficult to get into because it is a 3-period class. You need to be well on your way to graduation to sit in one course for 3 consecutive periods at the end of the day. Those are the students that, if we go back, would end up qualifying for the jobs that are at the very top, which include the higher annual salaries. So with this course, with this curriculum, and with the articulation agreement, we are putting kids on a path to make a very, very competitive wage once they finish their graduate degree. Culinary has 77 students with an average class size of 20. Graphic arts is famous, 116 students are enrolled, average class size of 20. Microsoft, TV production, nursing is one section, again, of a 3-period block. So 13 students are in the Certified Nursing Academy course, and photo. On the right-hand side, the other chart lists the current survey that we did with our 9th graders. So I heard from the school board that you wanted numbers in terms of what we were doing in terms of surveying the students. So this is a tricky one because we only have approximately 240 to 250 9th graders every year that come into Mount Vernon High School. So these numbers are of those 9th graders. So the goal is for these 9th graders to matriculate into one of the pathways for the following year. So as you can see, the most famous CTE course offering that we have is cosmetology. Next would be nursing, followed by culinary arts, etc. The conversations that we have to have with our 9th graders is absolutely critical because they need to understand that in order to matriculate into one of the triple block courses their senior year, that is one class that will take up 3 periods of their day. They need to make sure that they do not fall behind in any of their core courses. What ends up happening is while we have surveyed the students, not all of them would qualify for a CTE course. So while the CTE courses don't necessarily have a prerequisite that you have to take before, with the exception of CNA, they still need to be on track to graduate high school at the end of their 9th grade year, so when they matriculate into grade 10, they can fit into one of the pathways, because the pathways are very, very strict in terms of the time commitment that students need to make in the classroom, as well as the experience that comes specifically with CNA in the hospital settings, in the nursing home settings. So it's important, that's part of the conversation that we have with our 9th graders. So last year we did really well with our certifications. We had 80 students receive Microsoft certification. That is a certification that means that they have significantly met the requirements for Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Word processing basics, 37 students, etc. The two I'd like to pay special attention to are the 21st Century Skills CDOS Option 1 and Option 2. So the CDOS certificates can be used to supplant a Regents exam if a student is having difficulty passing that course. Now that does not culminate in a high school diploma. However, they can be certificated with a CDOS certificate, particularly students with disabilities that will tend to age out if they are having struggles with some of the academic courses and some of the New York State Regents exams, where they can now be gainfully employed with a skill as opposed to having to sit through continuous Regents exams and not passing them. So that is an option that a lot of our students have taken advantage of. We have the highest population of students with disabilities in Westchester County per capita at Mount Vernon High School. So we are significantly over the average. The average across New York State is somewhere between 18 and 20%, and the enrollment at Mount Vernon High School is closer to 32% students with disabilities. So this one is absolutely critical for us because we are still giving our students with disabilities that may have that difficulty passing those exams an opportunity to be gainfully employed having that CDOS certificate. It does not come easy. They do need to maintain a portfolio of their work. So this is not an option that, oh, you didn't pass the Regents exam, let me just give you the CDOS so you can get out of here. They still need to maintain a portfolio of work. They still need to matriculate through a sequence of courses, and they need to show that they can now go and work in one of the industry level positions with this certificate. So at this point, before I get into the barriers, I want to call up Nick so that he can share with you some of his experiences, and then there's just 2 more portions that I will be sharing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to make it clear that I have not had a CTE course yet, but last year I actually have sat down in barbering and got my hair cut a couple times. You know, I'm trying to pay the full at the barber shop, but from when I was there, I noticed how it's organized. Mr. Borland will have the barber and 2 people, which is just 2 classes, right? One or 2, who had the more experience cutting the hair, and had the people who are still learning watch. And I see them taking advice, talking, but how does this work? How does the fade work? And they're learning. So I love that it's organized. They're learning, and the cycle keeps going. And that's what I love about it. And yeah, if that's how barbering is, I can only imagine how the rest are, how nice they are. So I think it's a good job, seriously.
Thank you, Nick.
I'm sorry? So do they get a license when they finish? No. They qualify to become a barber's apprentice. So I actually learned this in a barber shop. There's usually only 1 barber, licensed barber. Everyone else is an apprentice. So I went into my barber shop. I was like, who has the actual license? He's been cutting my hair for like 6 years, but is he the apprentice or is he the barber? The great thing about Mr. Borland, and I can go on about him, particularly how we've adopted elementary schools this year and have cut hair for the students at a few of our elementary schools. But the great thing is that he is a Mount Vernon barbershop owner, and he is providing opportunities for our students to become apprentices in his barbershop. So the apprenticeship for the barbering
is similar to a real estate agent. They have to do a certain number of hours and make a certain number of sales before they can become a broker and open their own barbershop. And so we have someone who's homegrown providing that service inside our school as well as outside of the school. And so that's what they would walk away with, is that, that apprenticeship. So a couple of the barriers, I mentioned the ninth grade students that were surveyed. The first barrier is the number of students. We can only accommodate every ninth grade class that we have. So the numbers in our CTE courses that we're currently offering may not shift a great deal. And once we try and expand our CTE programs, then we need to have a plan in place for how we're going to fill those classes, right? So, for example, the students that selected barbering and cosmetology may become a competing interest, because now the students are figuring out which way should I go. And you would think that typically the boys would go to barbering and the girls would go to cosmetology. That is not the case. They go to what interests them. So the first thing is understanding what we can actually implement, not just the survey. If kids come back, if we give a survey and students say they want to be able to become plumbers, and we don't have the facility, but if we open up plumbing, then it's going to pull away from some of the other CTE courses. We want to make sure that we can do that with fidelity, whatever it is that we decide to launch. So that's the first one. The next one I call the educational F word. That's funding. As you know, we have been in a classroom. My culinary teacher has been in a classroom all this year because of the challenges around finalizing the work that needs to get done in our cosmetology and our culinary lab. I'm being made to understand that the rooms that we still have that are unoccupied, so there are two rooms, the old machine shop room and the old HVAC room. So my understanding is that each of those rooms takes $250,000 to clean. That is all of the old equipment that's there, that is making sure that the hazardous materials that may be on site, like the Freon that used to be used in some of the old machines, is disposed of the correct way. Mr. Policio and I have had ongoing conversations. Mr. Silver has had ongoing conversations with us. I'm so glad that Senator Biaggi has provided us with that $1 million. I'm looking forward to the press conference this Thursday for our culinary lab, because a lot of what folks don't see is the work that needs to go into making a space habitable before we put students in there. The other part of the fiscal challenges relates to the ongoing maintenance that courses have that not everyone sees, right? So if our CNA students are going to participate in these practicum hours, they need transportation to get there. We need a second adult to be there with them. So there are a couple of other fiscal constraints that come into play when we're looking at all of our CTE courses. Space for expansion. Folks think that Mount Vernon High School is like a palatial estate, but we do have a beautiful, beautiful facility, but each of the spaces that we currently have that is usable is being used. I can assure you of that. Even in the old machine shop, that's now housing some records, and we're thinking of how we can downsize the amount of records that are in there, but we just don't have the financial resources to build more brick and mortar space and add an addition onto the high school for more shops, if that were the route that we wanted to go in. And then the other is the staffing, and this is perhaps the thorn that has been in my side consistently in finding the best qualified people to teach the CTE courses at Mount Vernon High School. So by now you know, is well documented the challenges that we had finding a CNA teacher, certified nursing assistant. Each time we think of going down one of these pathways, we have to have a very solid hiring plan in place. I believe the hiring plan has to take into consideration what certification that person would need, the salary scale, because if you want to open up a dental assistant program, I don't know too many dentists that are going to leave a pretty lucrative six-figure salary to come and launch a brand new dental assistant program and do it in a school where you're going to have some time constraints. It's not like when you can't just walk into the dental facility at 9:30 where you used to have your own practice. The kids are going to show up. So that's the other. And then we have a limited pool of applicants across the state. There are certain teacher certifications, namely CTE, where the pool of applicants is just very, very thin. And so that's why when you see some of these programs, like the ones at Saunders High School or at Southern Westchester BOCES, the folks that are in those positions, they tend to stay there, and they'll be there until retirement because they're afraid of letting the program go, to be quite frank. So opportunities for further consideration. This is my favorite. So we are hosting a career fair. In fact, we're hosting two. March 4th is a district-wide SAT day for our 11th grade students. We have put in place a plan for our 9th grade students to participate in a CTE fair that day in our building. So we are developing a schedule where the 9th grade classes will be taken into the spaces. One of the things that came up during the last board meeting, and I think Trustee Miller, you mentioned this, that if the kids don't actually see it, then they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. So rather than doing blind surveys and just getting numbers, hey, do you think you want to cut hair one day? We want them to go in and see what the barbering class entails. There is a lecture portion to the barbering class, believe it or not. So there are chairs in there. So the students have to understand what it takes to make sure that they go through these series of courses. The other is we are launching a Spring Into Careers fair. That will be at some point in the spring. The date is yet to be determined. I met with the principal at Southern Westchester BOCES, Mr. Matera, also reached out to the principal at Saunders in Yonkers so that we can have a good understanding in terms of what they do to broadcast the CTE courses that they have. The last is what's your major is going to be our theme. So we are going to create pathways for our students that will fall into one of these three. At the core of that pathway is the 9th grade academy and ensuring that the students in the 9th grade academy have access to the AVID college and career readiness. So what we have found is that the AVID strategies are not just organization, teaching students how to, about inquiry and collaboration. It is actually the crux to all of our CTE courses. It is the crux of our International Baccalaureate program. Helping the students understand what it is they're going to learn will then give them the skills that they can transfer to all of these hands-on experiences through the CTE, as well as the exploration through IB. So the three pathways will be hospitality services, and that will include the culinary, the barbering, cosmetology, business ventures, which would include the business pathways, Cisco and networking, and there's a third, entrepreneurship. So those classes all feed into that. And then the technical and industrial leadership pathway, which is all of the technical courses. So the automotive sections would feed through that. The one a very exciting thing is that IB really does make us limitless, because there is a portion to the International Baccalaureate program that is the diploma program, which is what we have applied for. And then there's a CTE component. So the CTE component is called CP, career. So there are the schools worldwide that do the CP program as part of their International Baccalaureate are at yet another level. So that's ultimately where we would like to be, and having that academic rigor be the crux that holds all of this together is where we think we will end up. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Gonzalez, do you offer that program for the sundown students?
The CTE program, so the challenge we had with offering sundown students the CTE courses is that our teachers are teaching their CTE courses at the time that the sundown students were taking other courses. I've spoken with our auto teacher, Mr. Malasay, who jumped at the idea. I've met with Mr. Grant, I've met with Mr. Malasay. The three of us together are trying to put together a course schedule that would fit some students into automotive. And just last week, I was approached about having some of the young ladies participate in cosmetology as well. So it would be based on interest and based on the number of what teachers we would have available in the afternoon.
We talked about having night school for students anyway, and so maybe that's something we can explore again. Because we, Trustee Munoz and I talked about starting night school again, so some students can catch up on some school credits, and they can also catch up on some CTE classes. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Trustee Williams.
Roughly how many total students? I have a few questions in one. I'll give them.
Sure.
Roughly, what's the total number of students in CTE? Roughly the graduation rate? And do we have any current internships, apprenticeships, or, you know, students that are getting on-job experience?
So you're gonna make me do math.
Roughly.
On the slide, so the short answer is I don't know. I can calculate it on that chart that we showed on the graphic that we
About 500
showed.
there, roughly, is that it?
So that's the total number of students. Now that is, just so that you have a clear understanding, that's the total number of students in each of those sections. So we have cosmetology 1, cosmetology 2, cosmetology 3. The number that's listed there is the total of all of those students. The standalones are the three period courses like CNA and Cisco. Those are the two courses that meet for 3 consecutive periods. I don't know the graduation rate number off the top of my head. I can certainly provide that to you via the superintendent. And your third question was?
Do we have any current internships, apprenticeships, on-job experience? Do we follow up post?
Yes, so those are through the articulation agreements that we have with the other higher ed institutions. So for example, we have the partnership with the Wartburg. We have the partnership with Sunrise. That's how our CNA students receive their hours. For our automotive course, we don't necessarily need to be connected to one place for the students to provide their service hours, but they do those service hours under the leadership of the teachers that are inside the auto shop, and then they can walk away with either the MLR, which is the Maintenance and Light Repair certification, or the Automotive Lift certification, which is a separate certification that allows them to use the lift. So a lot of the other courses don't necessarily need to have the internship component. I know that Ms. Ward has a CTE task force that she meets with, which is local business owners. In fact, there are, I think it was 2 students that participated or that worked alongside a plumbing company based out of Mount Vernon that did their own thing after school, where those students received internship certificates and hours. Not a course that we offered, but if the interest is there, we'll certainly try and find the connection for them.
So you said the Cisco class is 3 periods, right?
Yes.
So is that 10th, 11th, and 12th, 3 periods for each year?
No, you have to matriculate into the Cisco course by your senior year.
Oh, okay.
You take that 3 period, 3 credit course. Yes.
First of all, Mr. Gonzalez, that's an excellent presentation. Thank you very much. It's really, really, really great. And the only concern I have, and it may be because we had a blip with personnel in the CNA, was why we only have 13 in the nursing, because nursing field has the most jobs, a huge number of jobs, and they're going begging for people. So I'm curious, on March 4th, are you going to dangle like career opportunities and dollars in front of them as well?
Absolutely.
Because to me it just seems like such a natural fit, and I'd love to see more students in that.
The one thing I'll say in response is the 13 students that are enrolled in CNA are the same 13 students that showed interest way back when.
So they started with it.
The year that we did not have a teacher in place, there is a prerequisite course that students must take. It's called Careers in Health. So we didn't close those sections. The Careers in Health course could have been taught by another teacher, a health educator, a science teacher. So we saved those sections, and I ended up paying a teacher a 6th period to take that class. I had another teacher change their schedule because I actually didn't want CNA to die. So in order to salvage it, we found other teachers, gave them the curriculum, provided the instruction so that they can then continue the access to CNA. So the only blip in the radar that we saw was the students that were enrolled in CNA last year, which was, I believe, only 5 students. So those 5, unfortunately, did not matriculate until the end of the program because we didn't have a teacher, but we were able to continue the program for the 13 students that are enrolled in there now.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I have a question. How many hours a week do they need for the CNA program?
So they need 1,000 hours by the end of the year.
By the end of the year.
In addition to the coursework. And that is not easy to do.
Right.
So we have 1 teacher. I think right now we have 3 or 5 students that are on track in Cosmetology 3 to end with the certification. But it's really incumbent upon the students to commit those 1,000 hours. So we have had some students fall short for a number of reasons, and it's really up to them to make sure that they follow through in getting those practicum hours.
Is it across the 4 years of high school or just 1 year?
It is,
For instance.
so it is a combination of both of those. So you need to matriculate from Cosmo 1 into 2 into 3,
Right.
and the 1,000 hours of practicum experience.
Have we thought of a model where you would get professionals to come and teach those, different people, not just one, looking for one teacher? So you would get a professional to come teach one of the courses of the CNA, let's say it runs from 12 to 2 every day. So that person who's a professional who perhaps will be working at night or another time might be able to come and teach that section. And then if there was a class, at 10 o'clock, maybe somebody else might come. But these people would not probably be certified teachers, or?
So a couple of challenges in that, and I would love to explore that if someone, that's actually how we found Mr. Borland, our barbering teacher. He started as a part-time teacher, so he only taught in the morning, and then he went and ran his barbershop in the afternoons.
Right.
And he's gotten to the point where now he can have someone else open the barbershop, and he stays teaching until the end of the day. So that's certainly something we can entertain. We've interviewed and tried, and are you willing to work one period? Are you willing to work a full day? The challenge is not for lack of innovation. It's simply we just don't get the applications submitted for those CTE courses.
Sorry.
It's money.
So I'm going to talk. I wasn't going to say anything, and I was going. This is how you know me, but you don't remember. But you did hire me for that CTE program. They worked really hard, but the rate. And I'm a nurse manager, a nurse educator with my master's degree. But the pay, I have to pay my mortgage, and I love it. And they worked really hard. So I am passionate for that, but I couldn't take what you were asking to be able to pay for my mortgage in Mount Vernon, and it can't work. And I loved it because I would have been offered my kids, but they really, really work hard. But they wouldn't even take in consideration my professional anything, and I was upset about that. She tried, but it was okay, and they were really good, and I got excited. That's the year that you guys didn't have a teacher, and you came to my job, and we were going to even onboard the kids as well, but the pay, we couldn't do it. It's not a living salary at all, and I get mad about it all the time because I know I've been in the system, and before you get to the interview, FYI, you have to pay for your fingerprints, you have to pay for your
Child abuse.
It's a whole bunch of workshops.
Certification.
Teacher, right? And it's hard. And I paid for that. I didn't care. It was at least $300-400, right? Just about that. But it was a wash for me because by the time I got to the part that I was, would have been onboarded. As a matter of fact, I was in the process of being onboarded, but I couldn't take that salary. It was heartbreaking for myself and my kids, and it's not for lack of trying for them. And I wasn't going to say anything. I left, and I paid for that.
Thank you.
But it's true. And that's the time when you guys were just starting with
That's
dentistry,
enough.
and you got me really excited, and they really bet you hard. They're not letting
Okay.
into the high school.
Thank you for sharing the comments. I'd like to return the meeting to Mr. Gonzalez. We all still have a couple more questions. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate your interest in our district as well, so thank you. Okay, more questions?
I think she brings up a great point in terms of salaries.
Yeah.
If are there any accommodation, financial accommodation that could be made for positions like this, that would be beyond, because of the need, just like they do in sports or in other areas, right?
I don't think so.
Sounds like an executive session conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like something that the board.
Dr. Hamilton, was it always the fact
I'll
that
take
you
it,
had to
though.
be a certified teacher? Because I don't think it was like that years ago. I don't believe it was like
Since
that.
I've been here, I've made it I have not hired anyone who wasn't certified. And that
No,
to
I'm
the
saying,
extent that there are.
is it a state mandate?
Yes.
Yes.
So there are, so let me just expound just very shortly, briefly on that. There are transitional certification areas that a person that is leaving an industry position can apply for. that does generally mean that they would need to come out of pocket for some original costs, some some initial fees for the fingerprinting and the DASA certification and child abuse certification workshops, et cetera. And then they would have to apply, then they sort of have to wait for the state to let them know whether or not what they submitted is okay. And that waiting game and that process is what stalls a lot of our thoughts to expand our CTE offerings, to be quite frank with you, because I don't want to look kids in the eye and tell them, I'm sorry, we don't have a plumbing teacher for you right now, so we have to close this course in October, like I had to do with CNA courses over the last year and a half. It's a detriment all the way around. They're losing instruction. They could be somewhere else. And we've prepared them for something we can't deliver on, and so that's why we want to be very, very careful about the courses that we offer.
So I have a question. I want to ask one question. And you mentioned that the programs that were approved because you have affiliations with various colleges. What are some of those colleges, and couldn't those colleges actually provide some guidance with respect to staffing some of the positions? And you don't have to tell me now, but at some point I'd like to know what the affiliations are for the respective programs.
So we have articulation agreements. I'll ask Ms. Ward to come up and discuss the specifics, but we do work with WCC, we work with Monroe. Right now, we just met with the folks from WCC. We actually took a trip up to their culinary lab. I saw one of our former students in there who was serving food. So there are articulation agreements that we have with some of the partners. Sherry?
Can you come up to the mic, please? Can you move to the mic, please?
Good evening. You can add College of Westchester and Alfred State as well. So those are the colleges that we work with for matriculation agreements, for them giving students different types of things in order for them to have a bridge into their programs. Okay.
I have a question. Well, either one can answer. So with staffing being a major issue, we know, on the high school level it's much different than the college level. Anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world on this level, high school level, do they provide online instruction? Or do we have the disciplines to put a group of students to get the instruction if we don't have the instructor? You know what I mean? If we can, is that possible?
We can certainly explore a blended learning model, but we need to have a certified teacher watching over the children on a daily basis. So even if we did something via video conference, we do need to have the instructor present. And there's nothing like having a person there actually showing you the engine, actually showing you the materials that you're going to be working with. So that's certainly something we actually use with our Sundown students in Rosetta Stone. I just don't see it bringing the same value in a CTE course where a lot of what the students are doing is experiential.
So, I'm sorry, really quickly. So we've had numerous conversations here about where we can expand. And I understand you're hesitant to offer students something that we can't promise. But we did, I remember Trustee Saunders and I went, I believe, to the big room. We went through the HVAC room. We went through the machine room. We talked about, we got numbers from Mr. Policio and how much it's going to cost. The reality is, and I think the number, I think you said $250 just to clean it out. I think we're looking at probably $1 million to bring them back online.
Right.
Like that's a lot of money. So what we've been discussing though is maybe doing it piecemeal, maybe focusing on, where we can maybe utilize the room for a number of different things. But what would help us, I think, in our planning is to know, it's great to see the 9th grade students and what their interest is in the building as it stands today. But I think what we'd like to see at some point is what else are they interested in that we can offer? And how can we get, much like you were saying, how can we get creative about how we educate these kids? About, can we bring in a plumber maybe who's supervised by a certified teacher or something like that? So if we could at some point within, next year, kind of get a gauge on where the 9th and 10th graders would like expansion. Maybe they're interested. My constant joke is the only person that I know who has a house in the Hamptons is my plumber, but that's the truth, not a joke. But that's the fact of the matter is, where we need these types of careers. I sent everyone an article the other day about welding. Welding's, you're getting $200 an hour to be a welder.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly open to it. Part of the conversation I've had with Mr. Policio is a rollout plan. So what would it look like year one? So if we committed to, and then this would be based on the interest survey, but let's say we're going to, let's say we're HVAC and plumbing, then year one is cleaning out, making sure the infrastructure is ready to go. Year two is planning. We have to get the curriculum, start searching for a certified teacher, et cetera. And then year three, implementation. We can certainly do that. I just don't want a new program to be brought in. So for example, we're going to Saunders High School to visit, and I had to caution my staff. I said, don't give me any ideas about what you want to do next year. We're going to look. And once we look and once we figure out how they're making it work, then we put our own plan in place to make it work for Mount Vernon High School. But I'm certainly open to that with a rollout plan, implementation phases. I see sky's the limit for what we can offer.
Absolutely.
Well, that has to be part of the board's strategic planning.
Yes.
And this, yeah, I mean, we've had conversations about this, and we're by no means done. It's something that we'll continue to have conversations about, and presumably you may be appearing before us again. So this is something we'll continue. But thank you. That was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Can I say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, I apologize for coming in late, Principal Gonzalez. But the sky is not the limit. That's the problem, right? We have limited numbers of dollars to allocate towards CTE, and the challenge for the board is to find what is the way to do that, right? And a lot of it should be based on interest, of course, and we want to survey and understand what kids are interested in. But kids can only be interested in something if they know about it. So to a certain extent, I think we, and I say we, the board, have to kind of make some decisions about what direction to go to an extent, taking into account known interest, but taking into account other factors like you said, a lot of our high school freshmen don't understand how much welders make per hour, and maybe we should educate them about some of these things. But we don't have a population size or a budget to train welders and plumbers and HVAC techs and electricians and carpenters. We can't do all of it. The CNA program is fantastic, and the other programs are fantastic, and I think we definitely need to move into the trades in some way. And then the question is, what way do we have the facility to handle? What kind of programs do we have the physical space to accommodate? What kind of budget can we handle? Teaching some types of things are very expensive, and teaching other kinds of things are not very expensive in terms of materials and training and everything, right? Like the auto tech is a big investment. You have to have a lot of equipment to teach that. You don't need as much equipment to teach carpentry. It doesn't cost that much to get some wood and some tools. But these are the kinds of discussions that we have to bring to a head at some point. When we've been talking about it for years. I don't know how we get it to the stage of actual implementation.
We have to learn to move forward somehow
So,
with a limited budget.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Gonzalez.
Mr. Gonzalez, I'm sorry.
Excellent.
One other announcement, then a presentation. We've been working on how we might be able to create opportunities for some of our minority business owners. So on Tuesday, February 25th, we are sponsoring a local business information fair, and we will discuss what the bid process is like, how some of our local businesses can go through that process. We have someone here that will walk you through their own experience with getting credentials so that they could be a part of the bid process, and how they may be able to be subcontractors with some of the larger contractors if they are not able to have the licensing necessary in order to secure that. So please help get this information out. We will be disseminating printed information in this regard, but that's on Tuesday, February 25th, here at Central Office at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And lastly, from the superintendent's report, we had some students present some artwork at Concordia at a very, very nice gathering. And I'm going to ask our board president to talk a little more about it, since she was there firsthand. And then we have those students here, and we're going to ask board members and trustees to do a short gallery walk as students talk about their pieces.
Good evening. So every year at Concordia College, Concordia sponsors an exhibit or participates in an exhibit. It's called the START. This year was START 2020 Regional High Schools Art Exhibition, and it's held over at the Osiris Gallery. And students from all over Westchester County submit artwork for exhibition, and ultimately there's a competition, and there are awards that are distributed. And this year we were very fortunate to have Mount Vernon represented at the exhibition, which was really significant. And as a board president and also as an employee of Concordia College, I was very, very proud and very happy that we were represented. I think it speaks well of our students and our teachers and our district overall. And we have some of the artists here this evening who will be sharing their artwork with you. This is something that I hope that the district will continue to participate in. It's important for our students to interact with students from other schools and to see the artwork and just to have the experience of having their artwork displayed in a professional setting and a professional manner. So with that, I would like to introduce some of the students who participated. So yeah, I actually have the program here, but
I have my glasses. I might be able to see those names.
okay. I have to take my glasses off. So
Oh, they're standing up now.
they
so
are standing up.
Oh, come on. Well,
So
Just
why
come
don't you
on up.
to the front?
Yes.
Why don't you come up to the podium, please? Go up, and I'd like you to introduce yourself, and then why don't you tell us a little bit about your artwork?
Good afternoon. My name is Chanel James.
Good afternoon, Chanel. Which piece is yours, Chanel?
This one right here.
Beautiful.
And tell us about it.
Wonderful.
So today I'll be presenting my self-portrait. The process of this work, I started drawing in my sketchbook, a preliminary sketch. A preliminary sketch is like a main idea of where you want the placement of things to be in the piece. And then I continue into my complementary sketch, which is like the overall general thing of what I want to do. The next step, I move on to the final paper, which is like a Strathmore toned paper, where I started to like draw my face, and then later on I went into the background on what I wanted to do. So with my face, I use lines to create tone and value. And yeah, in the background, I created a contrast and pattern-like symbols between black and white, because as an artist, I feel like that's like my go-to kind of.
Mhm.
Like I always like incorporate like patterns and Adinkra signs into all of my pieces. That's like it represents who I am as a person. And yeah, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. We're going to come down and look at it in a second, Chanel, okay?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Elizabeth Bancroft. I'm in the 11th grade at Nellier in Performing and Visual Arts Magnet Program. I'm happy to be here. Yes, we're talking about art. Yes.
Which piece is yours?
The Felicia Rashad portrait over there. So I created this because we named our auditorium after Felicia Rashad. She's a very good influence onto people, and especially young people and people of color. You know, me. So I started in my sketchbook. Everything, Chanel's piece, the pieces over there, they all start in a sketchbook. The sketchbook is the place where an artist can express themselves. They can plan. They can do thumbnail sketches. They can do whatever they want. It's very personal to them. So at first I did my thumbnail sketch, which is a rough sketch of your placement, then a preliminary sketch, and then I thought of what type of mediums that I'm going to use. I personally love ink. It's my go-to. And for this art style, if you look closer, the portrait is done in spiral art. So I was inspired by a Chinese artist. He used the lines to show the features of the face, and I wanted to replicate that in my piece. So when I got my paper, I started off with a sketch, and I just did my thing, and yeah, that's it. And I love it. I'm glad that everybody else loved it.
Absolutely. Behind it. Is there another
And
student?
is there another student here for the third piece?
He was not able to be here.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, I'd like to take a few minutes. Do trustees have any questions or comments that they'd like to share with our artist?
Beautiful.
First of all, they're very beautiful pieces.
Yes.
Very talented. And when did you decide that you were super interested in drawing and sketching? Did it start in elementary school? And when did you get your first sketchbooks?
Honestly, ever since I've been in school, I have been like drawing around on my paper, and my mom suggested I should get a sketchbook and like start drawing and like put down my ideas. And yeah. Also from elementary school, I used to draw on loose leaf paper. I used to draw anime characters because anime is awesome.
Yes, it is. It is. Yes, it is.
Very.
And so it could be like anything. It could be me. Obviously, they weren't that good, but art is a skill. Some people are born with this natural talent of doing good drawings, but it is a skill. Anybody can do art, like writing your name, art, calligraphy, yeah. So you start from there, you build. It's a foundation, and here I am.
Wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Great work, but great energy, right? We love that you are excited, engaged, passionate. You are, I mean, your energy just resonates through the whole room right now, and it feels really good. But what we want to know also is how we can expand your energy. Do you have, well, one question, what do you want to do post high school? Is it art, or is it going to anything else?
Definitely art, because I love it so much. When I joined PVAM, I knew that art really isn't a place where it's like when people are performing, it's mainly dance, singing, acting, and a little bit of art, but it's not really in the main thing. So I wanted to transform art, the art major, into something bigger. And I want to go to art school, and I just want to express my art. One day I want to travel and like teach other people to do art, because I want to teach people how to express themselves. Yeah.
You're a great role model, and I'd love to talk about a program where we can have you upperclassmen mingle with the lower classmen, the artists that are in the pre-K through 8, the select special students that you can go and share that energy as well and kind of help them out.
Wonderful.
To do that.
That'd be great.
Mrs. Rashad just texted me back, and she says, "Thank you. I am honored beyond words. Of all the people you could have selected, you selected me."
Darcy, Trustee Miller, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was going to ask something about, but Trustee Williams asked first, like what you plan to do, whether art school or just a university that has a great art program. There's tons of places around. So, and I think there are a lot of ways that artistic ability can be integrated into business and other things. So, I think you can define how your art infuses whatever you do, and you can probably be very successful no matter what. So it's great.
especially if you're interested in like graphic art and stuff like that.
Oh.
That's a segue straight into advertising and marketing.
Yep.
If you saw those numbers on Principal Gonzalez's chart, advertising was way up at the top.
Yep.
So I just want to say that by your presence here tonight, by sharing your artwork with us, by your participation at the exhibition at Concordia College, you have made art bigger for me and for everybody here. So thank you. You've both done an excellent job, and I wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to going to future exhibitions of your artwork. Thank you both.
so much.
You're welcome. Okay.
You want to recess and go look at them, or?
Sure. We're going to take a 5-minute recess to take a close look at the paintings, at the artwork.
Go to some restaurant. But we should do, I know.
So the next item on our agenda are committee reports, and in the interest of time, what I'd like to do is, if you have a committee report that you'd like to offer, that's fine. If you have some information you want to share about activities you participated in or viewed in the district, that is fine as well. And I just want to encourage everyone, if you can, to try to make it to the Avid Showcase this Friday. It is an excellent opportunity to see Avid in action. So just wanted to encourage everyone to keep that on your radar and see if you can go. And I guess even if you can't go for the full time, maybe even an hour or two, just so that you get the full impact of seeing it in practice. Okay, so Trustee Saunders, I'll start with you.
Okay, I do have, I'm on a few committees, so I am on the Guidance Advisory Council, and we've been meeting for quite a few months. There's a law, state law, that we're required to have a meeting twice a year, but we meet monthly, the first Monday of the month. We have so far reviewed school counselors, job duties. So we are updating that and changing it accordingly. So in the meeting, we have to have social worker, psychologist, teacher, board member, and school counselor. So every meeting, we have to have those individuals, and we've been having them the first Monday of every month. The Special Education Advisory meeting we had 2 weeks ago, very well attended. We talked about transitioning. Our next meeting is February 12th at the board here, and we're going to talk about 504s. Talk about food pantries. We had an excellent food pantry. I wasn't able to attend last week, but I hear it was over 300 people at the pantry at Parker. And we have our health and safety meeting on this Friday at 12 o'clock here at the board with Mr. Policio. That's all I have. I just want to add, Dr. Hamilton.
Yes, ma'am.
About your superintendent's report. We need to have more students. Maybe we should have a student every month. Students present something every month, because I think that was very nice.
I always said that.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed that. It makes me feel like, you know.
This is why we do what
This
we're
is why
doing.
we're here.
Yeah,
you
we're
know,
making it
so
happen.
thank you for that.
Yes, good, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Williams, would you?
I don't really have too much report, just report on golf. The golf program that I've been mentioning for the past few meetings has been implemented at Rebecca Turner. So it's an after-school program. I'm sorry, not Rebecca Turner, at Lincoln Elementary is the host site. About 15 students. This week, it's every Wednesday going for 6 weeks. This Wednesday from 3:30 to 4:30 will be week 3. The instructors from First Tee, the executives from the Metropolitan Golf Association have all been to Lincoln to see the program and see the rollout, and they're blown away.
Really?
Absolutely blown away by the students over at Lincoln. Majority of the students are from Lincoln, and they are so engaged, so focused, so disciplined. They model all the principles that First Tee is trying to implement as far as character and just, everything that they really about, and they're really, really blown away. So the emails are coming in daily as far as other opportunities for Mount Vernon children to expand, their exposure to this game. And I invite everyone to come out to Lincoln every Wednesday, tomorrow, 3:30 to 4:30, and it's definitely something to see. These kids in the gym, they're putting, they're driving, and the best thing about it is that this program is in the district right now at zero cost.
Excellent.
Not one single dollar spent, so that's the best
So how
thing.
many students do you have?
Well, it's a pilot, because we have to, kind of figure out the way we can really go and expand. So the instructors, is probably about 3 to 4 instructors for each child. So there's 15 students in this pilot. About 4 instructors that come in and they just give very detailed golf lessons that you pay hundreds of dollars for. Obviously, we know there's scholarships at the end of this for these students, and it's just really, really fun to watch these students watch up and, watch them line up and get ready. And they're just they're just really into it. So to follow up to this, to the 6-week program in the gym, hopefully we can get them to a golf course. The Wingfoot Golf Course is hosting the PGA, U.S. Open?
Yeah.
Right, so we have an invitation to actually get the 15 students to a practice round.
I'm working at that, so
Yeah.
I'm volunteering on the 14th hole, I think, for the whole week. So
Yeah.
we can
Go on.
coordinate on that.
Yep,
Finish.
so we're, they, like I said, the emails are coming in, they're really eager about, what's happening with, over at Lincoln School with these students.
So will it be another round after these, or this is going to be it for the year?
No, well, it's 6-week pilot on site at Lincoln. Then hope we can do the 6-week at Mashula Golf Course.
That's where they
On site,
practice,
yeah.
yes.
And they also they open them up to summer internships, all the other career possibilities. Obviously, the networking opportunity as far as tracking and kind of where they want to go with their career. And they got golf bags, they got golf clubs coming. They're really rolling out, so it's really exciting.
That's great.
That's awesome, because my grandson is with First Tee
Yeah.
at Mashula.
Okay.
So, but we didn't get golf course.
Well, this
we
is no,
didn't
it's
get
not
golf
15.
bags.
This is the MGA who's
Yeah,
like,
this
they
is,
kinda-
and they really work. They give scholarships. They do tutoring
Yeah.
after some of the programs. So I'm very involved with First Tee. I used to be, not as much now.
It's really good. I mean, I think there's a decline in team sports with the
Right.
with technology and Fortnite and everything. So we don't have the students that are eager to knock, say, hey, you coming outside, let's play. You really don't see these things. But I think that there may be a rise in the individual sports.
Right,
we
golfing
might have more
is
students that
it's also a growing sport for a lot of our children.
Yeah.
Because now the colleges are offering scholarships for golfing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I love it. I don't do it, and I don't watch it, but I think it's a great sport for young men.
But you love it.
I don't.
And
I
women.
don't love it.
And
I really
women.
don't like.
So it's a 50-50 split. I think there's
I don't like
eight young
golf.
ladies and 7 young men.
The women are rocking.
Oh, yeah.
Women are really coming to the game. But it is about, the MGA has a huge, because I've met with them too as part of what I do with my club, and they're hugely, it's great you tapped into them, because they are really encouraging youth to get more involved in the game. They're trying to attract more people to the game.
Good people there, yeah.
Yeah, they're really good people. That's wonderful. I'll
Thank you,
come
Trustee Williams.
Wednesday. Try my putting.
That's great.
And thanks for bringing this initiative to the district as
Oh,
well.
oh,
Thanks for
thank you,
all of
thank
your
you.
energy, too.
Oh, yeah, and also shout out to the city, Shane Brooks, who has also collaborated to help bring this to the district.
Okay.
So they're going to also help to give us some support as far as keeping this going.
Sure. Thank you.
So after the 6 weeks, will it cost the students if they want to keep going on?
No.
No?
Zero cost. The invitations to the U.S. Open and things like that, that's where we may have to find some money for transportation and things like that. But the program will remain at zero cost at this time. And, at this time, and that's kind of really where, it's the only discussion we want to have.
Right, okay.
Okay, thank you. Trustee McGowan, do you have a committee report or a board member report?
Yeah, I just want to put a plug in for Trap Hagen's book fair, which is going on this week. There's a massive amount of books right now, and everyone's welcome. And there's a parent night. They're open from 5 to 7 p.m. on Thursday. It's open every day during school, but also Thursday evening from 5 to 7. Thousands and thousands and thousands of books. Lots of shelves. Great opportunity to pick up some books for your kids.
Great. Great. Trustee White?
Yes, I do, and I'll
Okay.
keep it very short. I wanted to do a follow-up with Mike on Parker School, where last month the parents came.
Yes, yes.
And spoke. So, right, okay. So now we have 3 new water fountains that are at the school. They haven't been installed yet, but that will be coming. Electrical work is being done now at the school. All fountains were drained and jetted as part of the plan to put in the new fountains. Doors that were inoperable can only be used for emergency egress. So we worked on that. New frames and doors have been ordered for Parker. And we looked through about the radiators. And we're looking at the radiators that will have to have covers on so the child will have safety. So I think Mike and his team really did a great job going through that building. And I think we satisfied the Parker PTA. Also, Williams, I would like to talk about their brand-new bathrooms. 2 brand-new bathrooms on the 2nd floor have been completed. The 1st floor will be starting this week. The principal called and told Mike she was having like a lot of flu, kids out with the flu. So this weekend they went in and using Clorox 360.
Clorox Total 360 is the name of the
Machine. No Clorox is being used, but they went in and disinfected every classroom. So hopefully that helped. And the rest of them, everything, all work with Pennington and with STEAM should be finished by June, I believe.
Okay.
June 2020.
Wonderful, thank you. Trustee Miller, do you have a report this evening?
There was a family and community engagement meeting last Thursday, which unfortunately I was unable to attend, but Dr. BC assembled the parent liaisons and a bunch of teachers, a whole task force that is me working on the Mind, Body, and Soul event for May 16th at Traphagen. The next meeting is March 10th at 3:30. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this the last time at the last meeting, but we did select December, the committee also decided on the date for the holiday party for this year, so it's going to be Saturday, December 4th. So you can mark your calendars now for Saturday, December 4th. And I think we also kind of agreed that while we really appreciated Mr. Dockett's generosity in letting us use his school, it was a fire hazard because we had so many people. So we're working with Mr. Policio and others, and we're looking at doing it in the high school. We have some really exciting ideas for expanding the program for December 4th, so stay tuned.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. Trustee Ning?
Yes. Last Wednesday, Dr. Gorman, the Education Committee had invited Dr. Lynn Holden of Mentoring in Medicine, a nonprofit organization, come and present to us, her program, which really try to engage and successfully does communities of colors in general, or underserved communities into careers in medicine. And Mr. Gonzalez, principal of was here, along with Miss Bradley. because there is great interest in kind of connecting those two high schools to the program that she had. So we're going to watch the video first, and then I will describe very briefly what the program entails and the need for such program.
My name is Dr. Lynn Holden. I'm actually an emergency medicine physician. How many people have been to the emergency department for one thing or another?
Science Day is a way for students from underrepresented backgrounds to come into the wonderful world of the National Institutes of Health and to see firsthand how science is actually impacting their everyday life.
It's a great way for us to build on our commitment to engagement, trying to reach out to different communities, students, bring them into science and medicine and tell them about scientific careers, but also make them aware of the resources we have that can help them in that journey.
It isn't just about cells and molecules and biology and physiology. It's also about social issues and social justice and place and behavior and environment. And all these things interact in a complicated way.
I've seen a lot of interesting scientists coming from, families that can't afford certain things. And I think that's really inspirational somehow, just to be able to see other people make their way, people who look like me, people who don't look like me.
Today I basically learned how hard I have to work to get to where I want to be, and most of all, taking college seriously, hearing other people's stories, and seeing how far they've came, just inspired me to want to push harder.
I know I've struggled with trying to figure out what I want to do in life as it's my senior year, but I feel as though everyone has been given some really encouraging words as to do what you're passionate about, and that's what I'm ended up doing.
Have goals, have dreams, embrace your setback, embrace your mistakes. Yes, my mistakes has made me who I am today. It doesn't matter your background. What matters most is your passion, your determination. That is what is going to make you reach the top.
Thank you. Of course, one would try to know why, bring this type of program to Mount Vernon. But the need is obvious if you look at the numbers in terms of diversity in the medical field, especially at the top. And she gave us an example of a medicine, of a drug that has been found to cure, for instance, Caucasians, but do not cure other races. And, so you would go to the doctor and they would prescribe you the same medicine, but then after a few years of studies, they realized that it was having adverse effects, for instance, on blacks and Latinos, and others who were not white, for instance. So she gave those examples on, why we need to diversify the medical field, especially at the top. And if you look, and one of the reasons why it's not diversified also is economics, finances. When you look at the top quintile of earners, of people who attend medical school or become doctors, 48 to 57% of those are on the highest quintile in terms of salaries, or in terms of their family income. So, and black and Latino are at the lowest, of course, at the 5 to 6%. So I could raise here a few numbers. For instance, in 1978, there were 13,767 doctors, who were white, 607 were Asian, 933 were black or African American, and 562 were Latinos. So 2014, white 10,609, Asian 3,000, so it increased from 3,800, almost 4,000. Black African American 1,237, and Latinos 1,230. So you take black male doctors, there were 542 in 1978, and now 515 in 2014. So numbers have decreased.
Where? In the whole country?
In the whole country.
Really?
In the whole, yep. Okay. So So these are numbers that are alarming, of course. You know, why? Why not, right? Yeah, why those low numbers? And some of the factors are due to the type of, advisement and encouragement that they get, motivation. Many do not know really how to become a doctor, how to get into the medical field, how to go from nurse to LPN to, registered nursing, to all those fields all the way to becoming a doctor, or how to get into medical school, for instance, just, right from high school. So, these type of programs really do help kids think more positively about being able, the ability to, be doctor, because it's something that happened to her. They usually told, oh, you cannot do it. Oh, you cannot be a doctor. Oh, maybe you can go and be, something at a lower level. So, so this program really does help move, these children from, those type of beliefs. And so since 2007, 52,000 students, parents, and educators have been reached through this program. And you have 286 students in 37 medical schools, and all of them were discouraged from applying at the time that they applied, and yet they were successful, after they applied to it. Okay, so basically this program, what it does, it engages the students into this field of science. The STEAM Academy right now, they're taking, for instance, courses in biology, and this is the most popular course, because they start finding out and discovering that they can do these things at their level that are usually done at the college level, for instance. And so we're trying to, get them to attend certain programs or organize some summer programs or during the year programs, Saturday or after school, to get them to, through, especially through this, through mentoring in medicine, for instance, and prepare them early for medical school. For instance, they have a boot camp at 11th grade, the year before they apply for college, before they apply for medical school, so they could learn about the techniques of taking some of those tests, those exams. Because it's about, ability testing is not easy, right? So not only do you have to have the knowledge, but you have to also know the mechanism. You have to have, to understand, how to respond to certain questions. And they do this kind of training. And, we mentioned some of the schools that they could apply to that are 7-year straight medical school, where you could go from high school straight. One is at I believe, Tulane University. We have one here in New York City, City College. Yeah, Sophie Davis. Yeah. And the criteria of entrance, many of these students meet them, but they just do not know. SAT, ACT, all those are crucial exam, getting certain score, and having attended these type of programs as interns. So there are possibilities of grants. For instance, NIH offers these grants that are almost, that are not used, and every year the federal government makes money available for this type of program where students paired with mentors at the hospitals.
Oh, wow.
And high school students talking about. But there are only 3 grants in the whole country. So those kind of opportunities, we can take advantage of them. And she's open to working, with the 2 high schools, with the district. And Dr. Gorman, thank you for facilitating her coming here, and making this presentation, which I believe was, extraordinary. So what we will do, did she say we could share the video online, at this?
I was going to post the PowerPoint and
Yeah.
our meeting notes after tonight, and Rick will post it on the website.
Yep, that would be great.
Great. I'll
Terrific.
put it in my weekly news as well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. What are the next steps, though, to apply? Do we apply for a grant? Like, how do we become active participants in that program?
Well, we asked that questions to the two principal and Dr. Gorman, of course. They're going to keep in touch.
Okay.
She's going to send a roadmap on how to participate, in her program. And, and I think she did suggest that participating in fairs, for instance, could be a first step. Like, a fair like this,
Like what
where,
you saw.
right, nationwide, where you have, students from all over the country coming and attending, could be a first step. And having our students present, would be something that, just like the students attended the Concordia
Exactly. Good. Okay, thank you, Dr. Ning. Trustee Mitchell, do you have a report this evening?
A quick plug on homeschool. They have their mother-son dance this Friday.
Nice.
And I attended the father-daughter dance at the end of last year, which was really a lot of fun. The kids got dressed up. Fathers came out looking like something, and everybody danced. They actually had an 11-year-old DJ who was actually incredible. Incredible. I thought I was at a professional party. Another Holmes topic is the Mind and Movement Dance Academy, which is something they're starting, and the orientation is tomorrow at 5:30. I think it's $35, and it covers a student to attend these classes every day from 3:30 to 4:30. $35 covers them from like February, I think, through June. And to steal some of Trustee White's steam on Parker. We did, Trustee Miller and I did go on a tour with Mike Policio, and Miss Principal Green, who was very cordial and allowed us to come in, and we really saw a lot. We did a lot of inspecting, a lot of talking, and Mike pointed out a lot of things, topics that were discussed and things that were pointed out when the public communicated at that last meeting. We checked into each and every topic that was mentioned. So there were doors that were supposed to be removed, rubbish that was supposed to be removed by the time we got there, which was literally 48 hours later. 48 hours later, that stuff was all moved. Things were put away. We got to discuss topics on building out spaces to increase some safety that we saw. We looked at everything from ventilation in the ceiling to dirt and things like that. We probably touched everything until we just drove Mike as crazy as we possibly could, which was the goal. And then we also actually took a quick outside tour in 0-degree weather to look at outside Grimes School, where we've been discussing the possible green space and the rubble room and the demolishing of the old Mandela building. Really just quickly, but definitely saw a lot of things get done that fast with Parker School.
Great, thank you, Trustee Williams. Trustee Munoz-Patterson, do you have a report?
Trustee Mitchell.
Oh, Mitchell, I'm sorry. I was just, apologies. Trustee Mitchell, Trustee Munoz-Patterson.
So I have a quick audit committee report. The base risk analysis is being finalized as we speak. It looks like we're going to have 2 departments focused on this year. We'll go back, more into detail on that later. And 2 events that I attended, both on Thursday. One was the Mount Vernon Public Library had a great event with Tommy Davidson from In Living Color, and he just wrote a book, and it was a really, we had 90 students from all 3 high schools there, and it was really a fantastic experience. He's very interesting. He's obviously very engaging. I will say that I felt very old when some jokes were made. I was the only one laughing in my section, and some of the kids were looking at me, and I said, "Oh, okay." But that was fantastic, and I really want to thank the library for doing that. And then the other event that both myself and President Torres attended was the advocacy. There was a legislation event up at Purchase Elementary School, and the one thing that we took away, as a matter of fact, Dr. Gorman and Ken Silver were there as well. And the one thing that I really came away, and I'm not going to say anyone else did, is all of this is really nice and good. Everyone's complaining about the same stuff. But the fact of the matter is that our voices alone are not going to get anything done. The fact of the matter is that we're going to have to, and I've already reached out to the head of NYSBA to see if we can't get maybe like a downstate contingent put together, because we're different. I get it. I agree. But the fact of the matter is, again, we are just not big enough contingent to make a big difference. But if we could get everybody in Westchester County, and many of them have the same issue, although our issues may be a little more pointed than theirs are, and obviously our issues matter more to us because they're ours and not theirs. But the fact of the matter is if we can get everybody, you know, everyone's sitting there saying, oh, Westchester has all this money, Westchester has all this money, this is so fantastic, you know, and the fact of the matter is a lot of the districts are in the same position we are. A lot of the districts have this similar issues. So even if we got $1 more, if we can band together with, and the reality is I think it has to be downstate. I think we have to look at Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Rockland, and maybe if we can maneuver that and figure out some kind of way to mobilize as a unit, we may actually be able to effectuate some sort of change. So that's something that I reached out to NISBA about to see if we can't get done.
Great.
Thank you, Trustee Munoz-Patterson. Trustee Justino, would you like to say?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Okay. That concludes our committee and or board member reports. So now we will approve the resolutions. Can I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Resolution, Memorandum number 9A?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, or discussion on this?
You said 9A? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's item number 5, Human Resources, and it's approval of Human Resources Memorandum number 9A.
Yeah, I had a question on that.
9A.
And 9B, okay.
Yeah, it's 9.
Oh, yeah, now I see where it is.
You see it?
Agenda item
And-
5.1,
Yeah.
which is,
And 9B. I just said 9A, but it's 9A and 9B is the title. I
Correct.
just read the first one. Yeah. So,
I had a question about 9A. I apologize, I didn't have a chance to talk with the superintendent before
That's
the
fine.
meeting. Some of these positions are retroactive to September 1st, and I'm wondering why we're just now being asked to approve them.
Let me find them.
This is a 9A.
Yes.
yeah, it's a year. Advisor.
Yeah,
As soon as
September
my-
4th, September 4th.
Yeah.
So there's a
I
robotics,
don't see that.
yearbook advisor, 2 robotics team.
As soon as my iPad loads, I
here,
can show you.
There's 2 robotics team.
Oh, I see a 9,
And then
That's
there's
not right.
also
6 of 6.
advisor from 9-4.
or yearbook advisor.
That's it.
Ms. Tiggs, would you know the answer to that? Yeah, I didn't see it either,
Just
but
this
it's
It's a yearbook
yearbook
advisor.
advisor for Grimes
That we,
and
And then the.
There's 2,
Robotics team on page
Robotics.
6.
Mm-hmm.
Robotics team.
the robotics team
Hagen.
at Trap. Both are at Trap. Well, we saw Trap tonight.
Yeah.
So, you said Grimes first, right?
Grimes, yes, and
So this is Grimes' first year having the yearbook stipends because it was typically in middle and high schools. So they just got an advisor for the school year to do their yearbook.
Okay.
And then the robotics, I think that was a correction because it was put in as a stipend. And it's not a stipend position, it's an hourly position up until a cap of 3,300.
And another one is a Key Club advisor at the high school.
There's a date on there for September also?
September 1st.
September 1st.
And the high school yearbook advisor also.
Just getting certified. So the schools just submitted some of their advisorships for the school year, but that's a stipends position that covers from September through June.
So the people have been working since September?
Yes. As per the schools, they've been working since September. And I believe so with that person because the Key Club advisor at Mount Vernon High School this year is the same person that it was last year.
So one of the things that we've been doing, trying to do anyway, and Rick is coordinating that, is keeping a spreadsheet of all the clubs, after-school programs, before-school programs that are generally approved on an annual basis,
Right.
so that they're all being presented at the same time. So I don't know how this fell through, other than the fact that we've obviously been going through some transition and reorganization. So there may be some data that we're missing relative to some of the tabs, but we'll update that list and see what other pieces, what other schools may not have submitted their annual or their yearly submissions.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there
Thank
any,
you, Ms. Higgs.
Are there any more questions? No? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion carries. Are there any new employees in the audience this evening?
No.
Okay.
We have some interns, but no new employees.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a business office memorandum number 16. Can I have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, discussion?
No.
Okay, I see it, okay.
Okay. Hearing, okay.
I have a question.
Do you have a question?
I'm coming.
Trustee Munoz, go ahead.
I apologize. I'm
No,
a little
it's
slow.
fine. Don't apologize.
So I just thought that it was important kind of to address the fact of the $1.3 million that is being transferred and explain why it's being.
Agreed.
Mr. Silver, would you address that, please?
Please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you know, our fund balance is not to the level we would like it to be as of last June 30th. And we are attempting to increase our fund balance to be in a better financial position. With that in mind, we have taken some monies from discretionary funds throughout the district and moved them to a place where they will not be used at all, and they will then be a part of what is left at the end of the year.
And this is actualized from the non-essential spending freeze.
Yes, sir, from discretionary spending.
I'm sorry. So we're putting this into fund balance where it says
Well, you
save the
can't
money.
actually put it in fund balance. We are
Correct.
parking it
I got it. But
in
we're
another
parking.
budget code, and then at the end of the year, that money will not need to be used and will then go into fund balance.
Okay, but we're parking it in Social Security code. That's what it says, right?
That's correct.
Just clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Any more questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of school improvement memorandum number 6 dated February 4th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second? Any comments, questions, or discussion?
Nope.
Do you need, no? Trustee Williams, do you need a minute?
No.
No, you're good? Okay. No questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next item is approval of school improvement personnel memorandum number 8 dated February 4th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second? Second. Okay. Any questions, comments, or discussion?
I had a question which Mr. Silver answered. I just want to state for the record. My understanding from this attachment where there is no funding source listed for a number of people is that just means there's no change in funding source. It's the existing budget, correct? Okay.
Okay. So all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. I abstain. And I abstain because there is a recommendation to hire staff for the Smart Scholar Grant planning. And Concordia College is a part of that agreement with the district. And as an employee of Concordia College, as the Vice President of Operations and General Counsel, I'm disclosing this. So I will not be voting, so I'm recusing myself. So. And opposed. Okay, motion carries. No, I just said, I said carries. I abstained. And then if anybody was opposed, but I didn't hear anybody. So motion carries. Okay. Next item is item number 7.3, approve substitute staff for the P-CUP program. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, approval of the Student Services Memorandum Number 7, dated February 4th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Mm-hmm.
Second?
Sure, a second.
Okay. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee
How
McGowan.
do we get school districts to tell us when they have our kids?
I know.
How do we do this? This cannot keep happening. And this happens all the time, year after year. And sometimes, I mean, these are relatively recent disclosures, right? There are kids that have been attending this year, but we didn't know. One of them was last summer. We didn't know. Some of them may be older.
Yep.
I know there's been
approach the
times in the
podium, please?
past, I don't think it's in this, but there's been times in the past when we've been informed, 2 years after kids attend
Right,
places.
right.
It's insane. What can we do?
Yes, you are correct, and we were billed by a charter school in New York City for stuff from 1718, and we didn't know these children were there for 2 years. We have involved Mr. Scapoli from Ingram & Smith to give us an opinion on our obligation. The problem is that if you don't pay when they bill you, the state will take it out of your state aid. And we have very little control over it other than to go through the commissioner's office. We did mention this the other night when we were at our roundtable with the assemblyman in Harrison. We mentioned that this was one of our major complaints, having to do with spending some $8 million on charter schools, and we don't save 1 cent from it. And so if we did that, we would be home free with our budget every single year if we didn't have to do that. We can't collapse a class, we can't excess anybody because they're from all of our schools, and we have no control. I don't know that anything can be done under the way current things are currently. It might require some legislation.
Well, you said you asked the attorney for an opinion. Have we had that yet?
Yeah, no, we do not, from Mr. Scapoli, although his opinion is we do not have to pay something if we didn't know about it. But that doesn't change the state's position on that they just take our state aid. But there is a statute which we are exploring with Mr. Scapoli right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a statute of limitations, too. At some point, I mean, maybe it's 7 years, maybe it's something crazy, but at some point,
Yeah.
they can't come after us.
That's not what we're exploring. We're
I know, I
exploring
know.
a statute regarding informing us that they have our kids.
Right.
A lot of money.
Yeah, I know.
I was going to ask about the charter school.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I'm just so I'm clear, is it just a total lack of parents making the board aware that their children are being taken out of this district and sent elsewhere?
In some instances, that would be the case, but in other instances, there could be children that are domiciled in our area and just never registered here, and we would have no way of knowing that.
Right. I mean, somebody moves in, they never send their kids to our public schools ever, and they just go to different private schools, or they get an IEP or something, and we find out years later.
That's correct, and we had a number of charter schools, as you may be aware, that just started last year, just
Yeah.
pop-up charter schools, taking some 60 or 70 of our kids, besides the charter school that's in Mount Vernon now.
Some parents just generally don't know that, they should inform the school district that they live in. They just don't know.
How do we know retroactively that in fact these children lived in Mount Vernon?
The charter schools are obligated to inform us that they have our kids, but my understanding is that the New York City Board of Education, the charter schools thought the kids were all from New York City, and there were some 60 kids that were not accounted for that belonged to us, and the New York City Board of Education did not do what they needed to do to inform these charter schools that these kids belong to us. So I suppose you could say the parents have some obligation to say, where do you live? Who do we bill? And then they find out later on. But we have fixed almost all of them. And so our aid was also affected besides getting the billing. But we are expecting now to get back that aid that we lost.
Do you know if New York City paid for these kids by accident?
They did not.
They never paid at all?
They did not.
So that's why we heard about it. Okay.
Okay.
It still poses a problem where
It's a big problem.
if we get the bill 2 years later, the kids have graduated, and what's the proof that in fact they lived here in Mount Vernon?
2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2
that's right.
years ago.
Well, my understanding is that none of these are children who would be graduated from school and move on. We do have our attendance teachers are responsible for going out once we are informed that these kids are, that we're being billed for these kids. Our attendance teachers go out to verify that these children actually live in Mount Vernon.
Right, but still.
It's 2 years later.
Yeah, it's 2 years later.
Yes.
It could be what's the proof of the previous 2 years that they were here? That's, I don't know legally what we can do, but that's a question.
Perhaps I'll pursue this with Mr. Scapoli and report back.
I mean, I imagine that would have to be a poor vetting by that charter school. They're supposed to vet addresses to find out where the children's students live.
Right.
How are they not knowing that there's an address here that's not New York City?
And that's the
And they wait 2 years to figure that out?
That's the case for some 60 children.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
That we didn't know existed.
And they're not liable for any of it. The fact that they just have poor practice.
Well, our attorney's initial opinion is that we are not liable for the first year that they're billing us for.
But I think
what he's saying is that, do we owe the school? Legally, we have an argument that we don't have to. However, New York State also has a legal argument that if we don't, they won't pay us
Yeah.
the aid for it.
It's really.
But I think also, and I think the problem, and this is something that we found out when we were at the legislature meeting, is that we are one of the only districts that is in this position where our kids can easily get to a charter school. And our kids, if they want to go to a charter school in the Bronx, how long does it take? It take 10, 15 minutes to get there. It's no big deal. Whereas the kids from, Somers or Purchase, they can't get to a charter school. So we're kind of in that crux of we're the only ones. I'm sure Yonkers and Urshel to some extent dealing with the same thing, but we're really there's 3 locations where they have to deal with this issue. Yeah.
And
we're just kind of pinched.
nobody expressed, at our table, expressed any interest in the subject we were talking about.
Correct.
Didn't affect them.
Amazing.
Okay, any more questions or comments?
No.
No? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Silver. Next item on the agenda, the Buildings and Grounds Memorandum. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second? Second. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead. Trustee Munoz. Patterson, sorry.
Should I turn my
Getting
name tag that?
trustees mixed up. God bless you.
Mr. Policio.
Yes.
I think you can guess where I'm going to ask about.
The Mandela Gable? All right.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to turn it right over to Ken. 'Cause he's been
Grand
working
opening,
on that
grand
for us.
closing.
Well, the 152.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think Michael meant the penetrations item at Mandela, 152.
Let's start with the 152, and then I'd like an update on the Gable.
Sure.
Yes.
So this is regarding the penetrations item we had mentioned previously regarding the ductwork going through the masonry corridor walls. Essentially, we had to modify, based on the structural engineer's findings, we had to modify the locations, size, and quantity of over 50 duct penetrations through these 2 corridor walls. He had some concerns with the amount shown, and once we did the demolition of the ceilings and the trades did their coordination drawings and infield coordination, they felt strongly that we had to modify locations because it is a masonry type construction of a structural bearing wall. And if you think of it, the more openings you put in that type of wall, the weaker the wall becomes. So there were changes in the field that had to be made to accomplish the amount of ductwork in those walls, which was additional scope. And this needed to be performed by a general contractor due to the structural nature, not the HVAC contractor.
Is everyone clear on what the penetrations are?
I am, but why didn't we know this when we first started the project? Because it seems like something that's just so basic, like where does the ductwork go? And I believe me, I'm a total novice, but I'm just asking you my dumb question.
So the majority of them were accounted for in the design documents. It was a modification, as I said, to the size and location mostly, and then there were some added penetrations because we took some of the larger openings from the design and made them multiple smaller openings to lessen the impact on the bearing wall itself.
And just to be clear, it's their assertion that the difference between what was originally planned and these new drilling locations required 4 men to work 8 hours a day for 54 extra work days.
It's unbelievable.
That's what it says. And that's labor, 4 men, 8 hours, 54 days penetration.
So what the penetrations are is they go through several layers of masonry. I'm not following the 54 days. I can
I'm looking at Piazza's
It's on
bill.
the Savin.
reference that and figure out, that's all done through certified payroll, so that is all tested for accuracy all the time before payments are released. Like Ken said, a lot of the penetrations were in different locations, and some of them were actually through a different structure. Some of them were through sheetrock, and once we moved them to a different location, they went through masonry, so it became a different penetration.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so that was it. I will, if it's okay with the superintendent, I'll get back to you on the 54 days and just verify that.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 20 working days in a month. So to say that they had 4 guys full-time for 54 working days, plus another 2 guys full-time for 40 working days,
I think it's 54 penetrations.
it says 54 days.
I know.
That's what it
Let's
says.
say days.
And it also
So 54 times 4 times 8, that's 1,728 hours at $80 an hour. That's how they got their number.
Right, but next to where it says days, it also says penetrations.
Yeah.
So I need to verify what that 54 really stands for. It might be the penetration number.
Yeah.
Maybe we should table this.
And I also understand this was negotiated down by like half.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the
How's
heck
that
number they
possible?
started with.
352, I think.
50,000, I think it was initially.
Down to 152.
327.
327.
What
And
the
not
scope,
dollar.
just to clarify, the scope of work, it's not just the penetration, it's also the lintel above those penetrations. Because it's a masonry wall, when you make an opening in a masonry wall, you usually have a steel lintel to support the masonry above that. So I think that's why the hours are so high at first glance, because it incorporates that scope as well.
I understand I understand the concept. My issue, and this is my issue, every time we come up with one of these really big change orders, is we rely on an individual or a group of individuals when they make their plans. And if they're a bunch of, I'm trying to think of a word I can use while I'm on camera, but if they're not that good at their jobs and they keep overlooking these types of things, and I remember there was a change order when I first started on the board where they didn't bring the piping to the sink.
Yeah.
Give me a break. There's got to be a level of professionalism that we expect, and there's got to be a level. And if it's the architects, if it's the engineers, I don't know who it is. I'm not trying to point fingers, but I am saying if they can't get it done, then they shouldn't be doing projects for us going forward. Because the reality of the situation is, I don't do projects to this scope, but I do a lot of construction projects. I've done a lot in my day. I just did a gut renovation. Again, not to the scope. I understand how things change when you open the walls, but this is, $327,000. Well, nice that you went down to 152. Hooray for us. But we're still looking at the gable increase. We're still looking at all these things. It's just, I just don't understand who's looking at the original plans, who's looking at the original scope and saying, hey, listen, we don't have an idea of what we're looking at, or they don't have the full scope. I don't know what it is, but how do we avoid these issues in the future? Because this is infuriating to me.
So we do avoid them for the vast majority of them, but again, it's a 100-year-old building.
Mr. Policio, can you talk into the microphone?
Thank you.
We do, for the most part, the documents are correct. But let's take the gable, for instance. It was several $100,000 from start to finish. We were unable to see that because of where the roof line was until we were up there, removed the parapet, then we were able to see that. And that is a large portion of the entire contingency. That's just one major piece of work that nobody could see until we were actually in construction. So,
but that's what a contingency is for. A contingency is for something that you literally cannot see. We are incapable of seeing inside the wall. Get that. Don't like it, but get it. This, I feel like, is something that could have been foreseen, something that we could have avoided, something that maybe had, I don't know, they sat with somebody who maybe had, I don't know, did more HVAC, has done more gut rentals, whatever it is, could have said, hey, listen, you know what? I don't think we can do it this way. We should probably change it up before we even start. And then we could have avoided 152.
That,
Would have been
if I can add, that's the discrepancy in my mind. The thing I'm not understanding is this is not like they did all the work, right? They put all the ducts in, and then they're like, oops, we got to move them all. They take them all out. That's not what has happened, right? That's not what happened. What happened here is, as part of completely gutting this building, you demoed all the walls, and where you thought you were going to do all the penetrations,
Right.
now you see what's behind the bricks and behind all the plaster and everything, and now you're like, okay, well, we can't put the penetrations where we thought. We have to move some of them. We're going to have to rearrange some ductwork. I get all that. I don't understand how that comes up to months and months of extra full-time laborers to make those changes. It seems to me like you walk around the building and you say, we got to reroute things. Why would it take any more laborers, or maybe a few extra days of labor, if you haven't even done a single penetration yet? That's what I'm not understanding the delta. And the second thing I'll say is, this is a question. Does this change order also account, do we have to make any mechanical adjustments or changes to the plan because of the rerouting, specifically for airflow reasons, right? Do we have to remove ducts, meaning do we need to increase capacity? Did we need to get extra blowers? Like, did the changing of the routing increase other costs that we haven't seen yet, or is this it?
So, not for the penetrations that we're doing now. So, I just want to, I don't want to oversimplify this, but I don't want to belabor it either. So we don't just look at it and say, let's move this duct over to here. It's done through the engineers, through the architects, takes into consideration the airflow, the outside air that is coded that we must bring in, the balancing of the HVAC system. So all those things are taken into consideration on each and every decision that is made along these lines. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean that all those decisions that we made up to that point is going to alleviate us from something that is attached to it once we continue on. And that's what we find with these older buildings. And like the trustee had originally said, if you look at the number of that massive gable issue, that's the majority of the whole contingency.
No,
you know, so these other little ones, if we didn't have that big gable issue, these little ones would have fallen into 4 and 5% of the entire contingency. And some of these are missed. There are omissions, but most of them are conditions when this building. Just picture a building that we think there's 2 roofs on it, and we take the 2 roofs off and see that there's 2 more that aren't on any documents and weren't shown in any of the probes that we did. And that's where we get into these very frustrating. It is equally as frustrating for us. We don't want to have this conversation now, for sure. And when we sit around and try to figure it out, and these astronomical numbers come at us, and we negotiate from there, but they initiate the starting point, and then we go from there. So we do take it very seriously and try to get the best bang for the buck for the district.
So just to be clear, $152,000 is not, I don't consider a small amount. But when I look at like the Mandela change order and contingency that was attached as well,
yeah,
we're $480,000 under budget. Now that's, again, terminology being what it is. Respectfully, I don't necessarily count contingency under budget because we've already counted for the original ducts. So now we're really talking about extra money. That we were hoping not to spend because, as everybody remembers, when we talked about Mandela the first time, we talked about there is a finite amount of money left in the bond, and after that, we're talking taxpayer dollars at that point. So so we're all on the same page. When it says under budget $480,000, is that 480 including this 152, all of the gable money, everything, things that haven't even come up in front of us with change orders yet?
Absolutely. So it's everything that we know as of right now, including the entire gable, including, I believe, around 400,000. And don't quote me on that we allowed I'm sorry,
221 is
221,
left
no,
for
no, no.
reconstruction.
Yeah, that we allowed for reconstruction of the gable.
Correct.
So that is already in the number. So if it comes in less than that, obviously, that number.
And how
will-
realistic is the 221 for the rebuilding of the gable?
We believe it to be very realistic. So that is done by, like I said, it was done by two outside engineers, plus the design and engineering team and construction team that is in place now. So,
I'll just say one thing and I'm done on this. I mean, my issue with this particular specific change order, I understand everything you're saying. My issue with this specific one is I would understand if there were a large change order for design costs. Because once you demo, you got to figure out the rerouting of everything. That I would understand. I do not understand how once you demo and you're getting ready to do the penetrations and you got to sit and think and make sure it all works, how does the cost of the actual labor go up $250,000? I don't understand that. That's what I don't understand.
I mean, I'll get back to, if it's okay.
What was the original number, for example, to do the penetration work? Like, what was the original budget that you approved?
Particular line item.
There wasn't. That was,
Schedule of values for that.
there was nothing in the schedule of values, and then it became.
We assumed we would do 0 penetrations.
No,
No, I'm
No,
just
no.
saying there is
No,
an
I'm
apples
confused.
to apples line item in the schedule of values submitted with the bid to compare the 152 for this particular.
Oh, your point is it was one big number.
it was
Yeah.
in a bigger number.
It was one big number for all the masonry work?
Absolutely.
I see, okay.
If I could ask one question. Am I misled in thinking that this was totally unexpected and we didn't know anything about this before any of this work? 54 days worth of labor, and we didn't know anything about what this might have been culminating to before now. In other words, meaning, why do we not get any, did I miss something where we discussed that this work had to be done and it was going to probably come to a $327,000 bill before it got marked? Why do we not know anything? This is now after the fact, right? This work is done.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand your question, trustee. Why did we not know about the penetrations till right now?
Right, and why didn't we have any idea that this type of bill was on its way? This is over $250,000 before they gave us this lovely markdown. Why didn't we know, or at least have a flag or something that, hey, guys, listen, this is happening and it's going to look like this type of hit? Why didn't we know in advance of all this work being done so we could have at least had it in our mind that this was coming?
So, in general, the way the change orders get to you folks is that a condition is discovered by the contractor, let's just go with that, and he sees a condition. At that point, we bring in the team, they put out a bulletin to explain what has been found. Then we go out to the contractor who owns the work and say, how much what's the proposal for the work? Then it is negotiated from that point. They come up with a final fair and reasonable. At that point, it's brought to the design, after the team, Ken signs it, then it's brought over to Dr. Hamilton and Mr. Silver for further signatures, and then you folks get to see it. And that's just the order of it. That's the logistics of it.
I think Trustee Mitchell's point is that we've been given this heads up about the gable for months now. Hey, it's coming. Hey, it's coming. And I think to some extent there's a level of not comfort, because I'm never going to be comfortable with it, but at least it's given us a number of months to kind of think about, okay, listen, this is coming up. We're aware of it. That way, when we see some bigger numbers coming, we're not getting awestruck. And I think the
Understood.
question is why we didn't hear about this particular one, particularly how much it is, that maybe we should have been given a heads up, a month ago, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, where you were like, hey, listen, just as a heads up, there's this other thing coming down the pike, just to let you know.
We've
That's what I
been
think.
talking about the penetrations for the last 2 meetings, and we finally got this final number down to 152. So this has been out here for us to discuss, not to this extent because the final change order came through for this meeting, but this has been part of we have a couple of more larger ones that are coming down your way, and this was one of them. We knew of the penetrations about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer, and then we started the whole negotiation process and how many we needed. We walked the site several times to actually see them. We tried to go a different route and have a outside contractor come in other than Piazza, and this, at the end of the day, this became the best and most economical approach that we were able to produce.
So, wait, I'm sorry, only because I'm really doubly confused. So we said there were 54 days in
No,
that,
we did not. Trustee McGowan said that.
it's here. I read it too, but foregoing, because it says, and I understand that the guys could be working in the same time, so it may not be 54 days in total.
Right.
But we only heard about this 1 month ago, give or take. Okay.
I mean, we'll clarify what that 54 means and get it to you. That, like I said, again, that's all done through the Department of Labor and prevailing wage. That is not something that we negotiate, that part of it.
Every day.
So we will give you whatever clarification we can on that.
Can you give us an update or a status report on how much of this is omissions? I know most of it is unforeseen field conditions. Just give us a sort of a breakdown of where these change orders fall
These particular ones for this one, or in general?
in general.
So, from what I'm seeing and what the team is seeing, the vast majority of them are unforeseen conditions, field conditions. There are some omissions, for sure. There's some mistakes that the construction manager makes, some that the architects make, and when I say mistakes, they're uncovered conditions that we see. And then there is the smaller number of what the district has asked them to change. Sometimes we go in and we talk to a stakeholder like a principal or something, and we get a different sight of it, and so we say, oh yeah, you're right, and we'll make a change in that direction. That's the smaller of the numbers. The vast majority of the number comes from unforeseen field conditions, especially in buildings like Thornton and Mandela. A little bit less as we see in A.B. Davis. It's a little bit more wide open. We were able to see it a little bit differently, and the construction is different as well. And Pennington the same. Pennington, outside of the issues with the particular contractor, we were building something from the ground up, so that's a different approach as well, because there's less unforeseen conditions because there's nothing there. So, and even going further, like when I speak with my colleagues, other facility directors who have similar size projects, these are all war stories that we share all the time, is how the change orders are affecting the scope of the work. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pelliccio. Mr. Baviello, are there any more questions, comments?
Think about the other change orders?
Well, speaking of omission, I wanted to just mention one thing. When we're talking about omissions, and you mentioned the plumbing change order, which I recall very well, there's another similar plumbing change order in this group as well, where they need to connect the piping to the sink, which to me just seems like
Basic.
sort of an expectation that if you have a sink, there's piping to bring water to the sink, but just, yeah.
To clarify that one a little bit, I think it wasn't the new piping, it was the existing sanitary piping that ran to those locations that was anticipated to be there, and it was not. It was labeled as an omission because we felt there could have been better investigation that could have happened, but for all intents and purposes, the assumption was that there was original plumbing there. I think what happened was a lot of the old sanitary piping that goes to old science labs was glass, probably got damaged at some point in time and was removed, and nobody knew about it.
Yeah, but
Yes, that was an omission.
Okay.
I'm trying really hard not to comment on, fire-rated ceilings and mechanical rooms. Things, again, that just should have been there from the beginning. Everybody knows in mechanical rooms, again, you don't put flammable stuff in mechanical rooms, right? No? Because it's like putting tinder in a matchbox.
But it's not flammable material. Fire rating is the amount of time that
I know what
that it will prevent fire from coming in, and it's a different rating that was. It's not a question of that paper's going to catch on fire, or this door will catch on fire. The fire rating tells you how long you have. If the fire is in this room and that door is
Right.
closed, how long you have before the fire gets into the corridor. That's what the fire rating.
Correct, but when we're charged with the safety of children, I would think that that would automatically be something that would be in the plans.
Code. It's code.
Yes, but if it's code, then why is it a change order? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to
Should've
be
been in there
a
in the
pain
first place. Yeah,
Exactly,
no, I
I'm not trying to be a
understand where you're
pain. I'm just saying that should have been included in the beginning. We should know you have to have a fire rated door on the maintenance room. You have to have fire rated sheetrock. It's just
I
That's for lack of
agree
a better term, yeah.
completely. I think in that case, what happened was the original mechanical room in Mandela lower level had all the existing equipment and ductwork there, because I even questioned the same thing. And there was an existing ceiling. The architects had made the assumption that that was a rated ceiling, but because there was so much existing equipment in there at the time, there was no way to check it. When the equipment was removed, they began the demo. It was obvious that it was not currently code compliant as a rated ceiling, so we took the proactive step to put the correct ceiling construction in place in the mechanical
I
room.
don't think it's ever, they look at a ceiling or look at anything and make an assumption on something. It's usually something's in the way, something has to be demoed in order to get to it, in order to make those assumptions. And in this case, it was removing every piece. That room was half the size of this room, but it was packed with equipment that was all bolted into the floor, bolted off the ceiling. Until that stuff was out of there, it was really hard to see it.
I mean, that's a failure of a bond 20 years ago. That's not that one. I'm okay with that one. That sucks, but that's just part of dealing with a district where people did crappy half-assed work before. I'm sorry. I mean,
Mike.
If I have to couch my language, I think you should have to too. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Okay, any more comments? Discussion, questions? All right. Do we want to table this for another time? Do we need more information, or is everyone satisfied with, has had their questions satisfied?
Yeah, when
Okay.
are we gonna have a full grouping of all the things that were missed so we can see a tally on the dollars that were spent that should probably have
how far
not
back you
had
want to go? Like
No,
5
no, no.
years?
No,
Like 10 years?
No. Let's just talk about this bond and what we spent. That's what it is? Okay. All right, good.
Okay.
I would just, well, I would recommend tabling it until we understand this 54 days versus 54 ducks. I just don't feel comfortable, so I can't support this resolution, but if others want to vote for it, that's your decision.
I just want to be clear. So are we suggesting tabling that specific change order, but moving forward with the rest of the change orders? Am I understanding that correctly?
If that's what your.
Does anyone object to doing
request is.
that? Proceeding that way?
Sure, can we remove out that change order? Let's do that.
Which one? Which number is that? The
44.
44?
Yeah, 44.
$152,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put a strike through it, so the board will be voting on 43, 45, 46.
Okay, so,
And I didn't fix the math, but I'll fix the math.
Sure.
okay,
And
that's
there's
fine.
a number 3 too. Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the bottom. Mhm. Okay,
So I just got a little bit more clarification from Kevin Austin. That 54 days was the original proposal. 60% of that was actually cut off of that, and to get to that number, to get to the 152. So it wasn't that wasn't changed on that piece of paper because that was his original proposal.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's still, are these new additional extra penetrations that were never contemplated, or are they
Let's
just?
be more thorough about our response. Let's table it, pull it, and let's get all the information at once.
And move on.
thank you. Okay, so are we ready?
Yep,
Okay,
so the new resolution reads, approves Piazza Brothers Inc. change orders number 43 in the amount of 29,600, 45 in the amount of 25,900, and 46 in the amount of 34,500 for a total amount of $90,000 for additions and alterations at Mandela. And then plus the number 2 for approves TWP plumbing and heating. That one's staying, correct?
yes,
Okay.
okay. Are we clear? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion carries. Next item is item number 10, approval of the superintendent's resolutions. We're going to do them all at once. Okay, so motion to approve?
Motion.
Second? Okay, questions, comments, discussion?
I was,
Trustee Miller?
well, I was just wondering, I'm so excited that you found someone, but I didn't see a resume. I didn't know what his background was. The person in question.
Can we talk about that publicly?
We haven't done one like this in a long since.
Oh.
Can we talk about this publicly, or do we have to? I don't know.
Table
Talk
it till
about it.
after exec.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
I'm
I
slightly
can tell you
disappointed.
that his current position is an executive assistant to the director at, I think it's Westcott. Oh, okay.
Maybe we can discuss this later. Is there something that,
I would just,
or do we, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I would feel more comfortable if I could just at least see the, and then I can comfortably say yay or nay.
Maybe we can just table this and do it after exec.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Let's do
We could
that.
do it right after.
Okay. Any questions on the other items on the? So item 10.1 and 10.3, questions?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So do you have it? Do you remove it? Okay, great, okay. All in favor of,
Yes.
opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, and the last item, the last set of resolutions, item number 11. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments, or discussion? Yes, I'm sorry.
I just need to let the board know there were two resolutions from this batch of resolutions authorizing items for the upcoming election that were removed today. There is the legal ad that you guys are going to approve the language for, and the absentee balloting procedures. The state recently passed a new law that compels school districts to allow military folks to vote overseas. So we had to reword the whole thing in order to provide extra time for those military individuals to get the absentee ballots in time and make sure they get back in time, which brings us into compliance with the other general election stuff, but this was the first time for us.
And does this also reflect the number of polling places we're going to have? And
Yes, that was the other thing. Some of you may recall 3 years ago, the district began consolidating polling districts, not polling sites, polling districts. And this year will be the final phase of that. Everybody who voted someplace last year will vote in the exact same place they did last year. There just won't be 3 or 4 different tables. We've consolidated it all down to one election district per polling site, which will, in terms of getting the results back here at the end of the evening,
Right.
will streamline that process, and it should also save us some money on the back end in terms of the number of election workers we have.
It makes it easier for the community too, because wherever they went last year, they know they can.
Yes, and postcards will go out to all of our voters, notifying them once again of their election districts. Because the only thing is changing, that is their election district number, not their polling site.
Does that also mean we have to rent fewer machines?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is roundtable, but in light of the time this evening and the fact that we have to go into executive session, I'd like to suggest that we postpone our roundtable discussion for our next meeting. So if everyone is in agreement, we'll postpone it. Is that okay?
I'd just like to make a suggestion.
Sure.
Real quick. Since it's Black History Month and we've had a few discussions about Mandela Zollicoffer School, I would like to propose that we have a resolution at our next board meeting to change the name legally, if that's okay.
To change it.
Yeah, to
Change
make
it or-
Yeah, finalize the name of the
Finalize
school.
it.
Well, there's 2 other school names as well, so maybe we can
What do you mean?
get it all in one shot.
Well, let's.
Maybe we can have that discussion. But I mean,
Or we can talk about that at a retreat too.
I think what she's saying, if I understand, is just change it, keep the name, just
Keep
take
the
high
name.
school off.
Yeah, take the high
Right.
school off. Mandela
Oh.
Zollicoffer School.
school.
Yeah.
Whatever
you
we're
want
gonna
us to
do on
form-
that, we need to do it now, you're right.
That's right. So, I mean, we've already
Yeah,
discussed them.
we've heard it,
discussed
and we
them,
heard
and
people.
It's Black History Month. Let's do it this month.
So do we need a resolution to just
We
formally?
do need a resolution.
can we-
This is the only meeting this month,
I'm
trustee
sorry.
Saunders. This is our only meeting this
Oh, is
month.
it?
So if
I'm gonna
the,
miss you guys. What am I gonna do?
Go on another
do
cruise.
you want to propose a motion to
If that's okay, I'd like to do that.
Sure.
I would too.
Made a motion. You gonna
So are we,
Second.
we're doing this right now?
Why not?
When is
You agree or you don't agree?
Well, something else we have considered, we had talked about is naming it the Mandela School and honoring Zollicoffer in some bigger way, some district-wide way, and not specific to any one building.
I think the voice of the community has been that they want to keep Mr. Zollicoffer's name on with Mandela on that
Yes.
school.
Is that the case, or is it just the case that we haven't offered them any other proposal to honor him?
Well, what Mr. Clark was saying, he said on some building. He said it doesn't have to be on
I
an
think-
elementary school
I
building.
We have to get an application into the state by February 28th.
Anyway, so let's.
I mean, hey, listen, I'll say my personal piece. I think when you have somebody like Mr. Zollicoffer, who is universally revered and who has direct ties to this community, and not just to that building, but to multiple schools around the building, I think it would be great to find a way to honor him in some bigger way, honestly, than just one building, in a program or an honorarium or something that's district-wide. I'm sorry, I don't know more to say than that. I mean, Mandela is a person worth revering, I believe, and I've zero problem naming a building after them. And given the history of the building, was officially named after him first, right, by Mr. Zollicoffer and others. Was certainly not. No one's talking about taking the name off, Mandela's name off the school. But listen, if no one can think of a better way to honor Mr. Zollicoffer, I'm all for keeping the name the same. I just think it's worth thinking about other ways to honor somebody with those kind of ties to the community at large instead of just one elementary school. That's all.
I'm with you there, Micah. I think we haven't had the conversations to really figure out how we can honor Dr. Z in the district. And I think we just have to have that conversation with, possibly our new mayor, city council, and throw some ideas. We do have some ideas around, in our head that we can kind of throw around to honor Dr. Z and, in the naming of the building, the Nelson Mandela School. That's my opinion. And then also, honor him in another way. And obviously, we just need to get to those conversations, I think, before we move forward.
Well, I know the community came out last meeting.
I was gonna say.
They were, dead set on
Adamant.
keeping the name Mandela Zollicoffer. I don't know if the city should get involved, but maybe we should get other people from the community to give.
I agree.
I don't know.
That's what
if the
Mr.
city-
Clark was saying tonight.
If
Let us
you
come to
wanna-
the
If you
table.
would like to, but we need to, settle this.
We need to do it.
I
If you
agree.
don't want to do it tonight, I suggest we ask people from the community to put their suggestions in, what their thoughts are, because people are coming on, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls, are we changing the name, or why are we taking Mr. Zollicoffer's name off? Why? So
I would encourage the board to bring closure to this. The community
Has spoken.
has
Yeah,
spoken.
they've come,
They have.
The issue is, don't take his name off that building.
They don't want his name
We're
off that
raising
building.
additional issues that haven't been raised
Yeah, why-
by the community, in my view.
Why change it if we,
If
people
we
want
don't
the
get an
same?
application into the state, it's going to be called the Mandela Zollicoffer High School in September.
That's
So
unacceptable.
do we need to change, what other schools were you
So it
talking
could be the
about?
Mandela Zollicoffer School.
Right.
In this way, it will encompass whatever grades,
Right.
regardless.
But for even some of the people who I've spoken to in the community about the removal of Dr. Zollicoffer's name, for the most part, and, like I said, I know Dr. Z personally. He's had a huge impact on my life indirectly inside my family. He's done wonderful things. A lot of the people who are concerned about the removal of the name are the same people who was worried about the removal of the program, which is fine. And what I explained to a few people said, well, you can't take the name, you can't take Zollicoffer's name off the school. And I said, well, I said, yes, we can, only because we're in transition as a district. We've been leading up to a certain point for years in this 2020 vision, and going from the alternative high school to the elementary school now to our K through 8 school requires change. Branding is a big part of our reorg, right? And, you know, it's a big thing with what we're doing K through 8 as far as intramurals. And, you know, it's not, you know, names don't have to be so perfect. However, when you put together a league, this isn't a league, but when you're organizing a league and things like that, you do look at branding, and you want to make sure that names and everything line up. I love Dr. Z, and I would definitely like to have his name live forever here in Mount Vernon. It's just that with all the other schools and what we have in line right now, I'm for the removal of Dr. Z's name from the building only if we can come up with a better solution.
If it's
to
in
honor him.
conjunction with something else on it.
If we can't come up with anything else, then, you know.
What I
I'm
have
fine.
no interest in doing is naming that school Mandela School and then spending 6 months doing nothing with Dr. Z's name. Absolutely not. I would only support changing it if it's in conjunction with honoring Dr. Z in some other better way, which we would, I agree. I think we should get community input before making that decision. May not have time to do that.
But the community already spoke last week.
This is what I'm
They
thinking.
spoke
The
tonight, they
community
spoke
came-
last meeting. You
At
know,
last
they-
meeting.
Yeah, because they thought we were going to name Mandela and then just forget about Dr. Z forever, which that was a misunderstanding, which we have no intention of doing.
So one of the things that really resonated with me when everyone spoke about Dr. Z was the fact that it wasn't just, he didn't just affect Mandela, he affected the whole district. He affected the whole city. And the fact of the matter is, and the only thing that, again, that keeps coming kind of resonating with me is we need to give him a higher, like, if we take his name off the building, then it has to be put somewhere of a higher level.
somewhere better.
And the only place that I could think of that would give him the respect that I would think that people would want to see, and I think that he deserves, would be me maybe naming this building after him.
Yeah.
We can name this building after him. There's no reason why we couldn't. And then that would be essentially touching every single student in the district, if you think about it, because this is where everything comes out of this building. The educational component comes out of this building. The instruction comes out of this building. Their files are in this. Like, it's just, that was my only idea in terms of how can we elevate his status and keep him as a topic of, you know, where now the kids come here when they come to sign in, and you can say, hey, listen, as you're registering, do you know who the building is named after? And that would be a way for his legacy to live on.
As Dr. Hamilton said, by February 24th, if we haven't made a decision, we do not have another meeting.
And we don't need to
It
name
will be
Mandela.
called Nelson Mandela Zollicoffer High School.
And we need to make a decision.
And I think we need to make the decision. I think the people came out
It came out.
last month,
And tonight.
and Mr. Clark came out tonight. But I think a decision needs to be made quickly, because it will be called, when those kids enter, those pre-K and 8th graders enter, it'll be called the high school.
And there's only, I'm sorry, last point. Last point is that if we do name it the Nelson Mandela School, would be one of the very few Nelson Mandela schools in the whole country. I mean, Nelson Mandela Zollicoffer, either way, we're going to be, but I think that has a great, huge impact. Not to take anything away from Dr. Z's legacy, but I think we just have to look at this in as wide of a scope as possible.
So I appreciate everybody's input now, and again, in the interest of time, and given that there's still sort of some unsettled discussion around this, I'd like to table this, and we will make a decision before the end of the month, even if it means we make a quick special meeting. But I'd like to table this for now because we need to move forward. We need to move into executive session, and I don't get the sense that we are completely sort of in agreement. And so I'd like us to take some more time to think about this and discuss it.
I think we are in an agreement to name the school Mandela.
Right, there's no question about that. We're not changing that name.
Why don't we do that now? And then, and I was going to suggest to change the name of Holmes to Dr. Z's.
Okay, but we can't undertake that discussion right
Okay,
now.
So,
And so
but
the,
at least, that's,
just need
that's
to-
another possibility. Either this building with the history that was brought to us around, Holmes,
okay,
so that's something that's why that part requires a much larger discussion.
I agree, I
Okay?
agree.
So that's a great idea to name this building.
It is.
But at the same time, given that history, that what I read before, and so that could be. But for now, we need this naming of the school done right now, so we can go ahead with that.
Okay, so let me just go around the table. Is everyone ready to agree, or do we want discussion? Okay. Excuse me one second.
I think our superintendent's back
Okay.
is giving way. We gotta
Okay, let's
get this
do this.
over.
Okay. So we're gonna just table it for now. We're gonna come back out after executive session because there is a matter that we do have to vote on, and then at that point, we can resume the discussion. So we're gonna go into executive session now. Can you please tell us?
Yes, good. We need a motion to go into executive session this evening for the discussion of collective bargaining negotiations between the Mount Vernon City School District and the Mount Vernon Federation of Teachers, as well as to discuss the employment history of a particular person or persons, receive advice from legal counsel.
Second.
All in favor? Yes. Okay, opposed, abstained. Thank you. How long will we be? Or will we need?
I think like an hour.
Okay, so in an hour, so we should return about 10:40, 10:45 approximately. Okay.
Need a motion to approve, be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, this Board of Education authorizes an employment agreement with Jonathan Walters to serve as Executive Assistant to the Superintendent of Schools.
Motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay. Are there any other items? Yes. No, that's it then. That's it. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Second? Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone. Good night.